to the Play YouTube channel, Open Mic Discussion.
Greetings and salutations and hello to everyone, morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Thanks for coming to Open Mic, episode 112. And today we're jumping back into Colborn v. Netflix. I'll scan through some of these. We're starting with document 331. We're now up to, Cherie got us document 340 on Friday. So we're getting there. This first document that we're going to read, I'll show it to you. It's pretty long. I don't know how much we'll read of all of it, and you'll see why. But I think we should read some of it. Again, this is what Judge Ludwig is going to have to go through and read. So to understand whatever decision that he may come up with later on, if we don't at least make some attempt to read through it, we're not going to really fully understand why he may have come to his decision. So that's the reason we're doing this. Not necessarily that we want to read through a lot of lawyer dribble and drabble and repetitive. It's so maddening. That last one we did the other day was crazy. They're repeating the same crap over and over again now. So if it gets to that point, we're just going to move on. But anyway, let's get our Discord panel introduced, and we'll say hello to everyone on the live chat, and we'll get this show on the road. So first we got Alice. How are you doing today, Alice?
Thanks, Jack. It was my son's 30th birthday yesterday, so came over, had a catch up and things like that. So it was really nice. I can't believe he's bloody 30 already. But yes, so it was really nice to have him over last night. That's why I couldn't make it last night. So hello to you and Rhonda, and hello to everyone in chat. And can't wait to see what these new documents bring out. Probably more bull. So
I'm sure. Oh yeah, no doubt. And,
yeah.
We had a really good discussion last night. It was a good way to kind of go through some of these various points in the state reply. It was good. So, but you were sorely missed, but glad you got to enjoy time with your son. So that's wonderful. Just Rhonda.
Thanks, Jack.
Yep, you bet. And just Rhonda.
Hello, Alice and Jack and everyone in chat. We have a very small panel today. Lots of folks have things going on in life, and so you get three of the best. And the rest of the best will be here later.
That's right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Rhonda. Doc had something to do to take care of. He was going to try to come, but he's got some things to take care of. Neverly's out on, doing Neverly things, real life stuff. And then Cherie's really busy with work, so she had to take the day off. And then I think Susan may she's going to try to come. She's at work right now, but so she'll probably a few minutes later, I imagine she'll be pulling in here for too long. And it's really late for our friend, our brother yours, so he's probably asleep. He's always asleep. That's the way it goes. Anyway.
And Cherie is, I think she said she's got like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 briefs due this week or something in her office.
Right.
So
that's right.
She's very busy.
She's very busy right now with the filings that her firm is having to deal with. So we're going to miss her, but we understand she's got real life work to do. So anyway, let's say hello to everyone and see who we got in the chat here. I see TTM Fangirl, Neighbor. Thanks for coming. JD, Jennifer Manning, The Lovely Dark Side, Iced Coffee. Hey, thanks for coming. That was Jay. There's Pete Moss and Andy B, our sound man. There's Justine J. Hey, thanks for coming.
Got JD.
Yes, I said JD.
While you're looking, Jack, I just want to, in case, I'm not sure if it will still show up or not, but we want to give a shout out to Katie did it. She became a member this afternoon. So thanks, Kay.
I saw something roll by a few minutes ago, but I was trying to get rolling here because I'm late myself. I scheduled this early, but we're all this moving crap, and I was late getting on. I apologize for that. I thought I said that. Well, that's awesome. Thanks, Kay.
Thanks, Kay.
We've got
Hey, I see.
Angie, and
Yeah, I was just gonna say Angie and
yeah,
Cher,
yeah.
Bethany.
We have Sherry Lynn Pontillo. Hello, Sherry Lynn. Yeah, Bethany. We've got Maz. Hi, Maz. Tina Anderson.
Gloria.
We have Faradax. We've got Cassandra. Nan's Life.
Oh, I missed you. Yeah, I think that's. I missed those.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to pull this first document up. Like I said, this is document 331. I think it's in the library. If it's not, it will be. But regardless, it's going to be on the screen here in a second. Give me just a moment. Okay. There we go. That's going to pop in there. So this first one is a 78-page document, and you're going to see why I said we may not read through all of it, because what this is summaries for each episode, but it's not exactly what we read before. But I think there's going to be some elements to what we read before as they summarize these various episodes in Making a Murder. So I think we'll read a couple of them, and then we'll make a decision whether to keep reading or move on. Again, we have to understand what Ludwig is looking at. If we don't read it, either here or on our own, we're not going to know for sure. So anyway, Rhonda, are you up for reading, or you want me to start?
Yeah, I can start. It doesn't matter to me, whatever you need.
Why don't you start? I mean, like I said, this is a pretty long document. Why don't you start, and then we can always break it off and share the load between me and you and Alice, and Susan comes along, and that way we're not all, it's not all one voice,
Right. Yeah. Mine certainly can be a little monotonous.
I know mine can, but you right out.
You got an amazing accent, and Alice, of course, has all of her Scottishness that she brings to it, and then there's me. Well,
So, I ain't done no damn Joe Exotic in a long time.
We miss Joe Exotic. Hey, chat, do we miss Joe Exotic a little bit?
No way
Hey,
I could read. No way I could read like that. Anyway,
T1 right. And Hemberry just popped in, so welcome, guys.
There you go. Hey, thanks for coming, guys.
Okay.
All right, you start whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right. Plaintiff's brief in opposition to defendant's motions for summary judgment. Introduction. Plaintiff respectfully submits this combined memorandum in opposition to defendant's summary judgment motions. As explained below, there are material disputes of fact for trial on plaintiff's claims for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress that are not overcome by any defendant's arguments. Procedural posture and material facts. This case arises out of the Netflix series Making a Murderer. Defendants Chrome Media LLC and its principals Laura Riccardi and Maura Demos take significant credit for the content of MAM, contending that they are producers of the series. However, Netflix was also undeniably heavily involved in the creative development of each and every episode, as described further below. Netflix approved the final cuts of all MAM episodes. Colborn additional proposed findings of fact.
Pay attention. Pay attention to that CAPFF, and then there's another one that's going to come up because these are mentioned down below in what we're going to read. So continue, please. I'm sorry to interrupt. Just wanted to make sure everyone is going to Colborn additional proposed finding of facts. Yep, it's referenced many times below.
Okay. Hereafter, we'll refer to it as CAPFF. Number one, from its involvement, Netflix aimed to craft the series from a quote unquote a marketing perspective and also from a quote unquote awards qualifying perspective. Let's see. Okay, I'm just trying to see what to read and what can be left out. Okay, Ma'am tells the story of Stephen Avery, a former resident of Manitowoc County, Wisconsin, who was convicted in 2007 of killing a young woman named Teresa Halbach. Netflix PFOF number 25. While the parties dispute the extent to which the series conveys to viewers that Avery was wrongly convicted for that crime, there is no dispute that the series also highlights Avery's conviction for a prior alleged rape for which he served time in prison, but for which he was later exonerated on the basis of DNA evidence. Got some redactions.
Quite a bit of redactions, yeah.
Yep. Okay, so CAPFF number 3 was redacted, partially redacted, but it goes on to say Chrome was also involved in efforts to brainstorm with Avery's defense attorneys to attempt to obtain additional testing of evidence presented in his defense, news that Netflix embraced. In the Barkler Declaration, Exhibit 1 NFX COL. Number 4, CAPFF number 4. Netflix likewise started from the point of view that Avery was quote unquote innocent of the Halbach murder and that the judge was biased against him. Oh, gosh, I'm already irritated. An in-depth examination of the structure of MAM is critical to understanding its presentation of the plaintiff, Andrew Colborn, as a participant in an alleged Sheriff's Department conspiracy to frame Stephen Avery for Teresa Halbach's murder. In particular, Netflix sought to augment their series' reliance on voiceovers by Avery himself to tell Avery's narrative. Number 5, that's not what is, I'm not sure what CAPFF number 5. The final product for MAM, according to Netflix's creative team, was to provide a quote, an immersive and all-encompassing experience for the viewer, including deft and unexpected foreshadowing of key elements, pitch-perfect callbacks of evidence, and breathtaking reveals, end quote, accompanied by a quote-unquote thriller atmosphere imparted through the music score. Number 6. The series unfolds and over the 10 episodes. In the interest of brevity, plaintiff provides streamlined summaries of the respective episodes below, focusing more heavily on the episodes that feature him, but responds more fully to defendant's characterizations of the episodes in his responses to their proposed findings of fact. And that's you've already read all that, the addendum and stuff, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, we'll take a look at this episode 1 again. These are I think there's some additions to what we've read prior to this.
Okay.
Somebody's echoing.
Well, is it me?
Yes, it is.
It is? No.
Hey, there's
Let me
Christina.
try interject.
There's Christina. Hey, Christina,
maybe it's
you can say hi first. Come on.
Hello, everyone. I apologize for being late. I had to bathe my dogs. I didn't want to do that on air, but I just got here, Rhonda, and I too am irritated already. How else was Stephen Avery supposed to participate in a documentary about him unless he was interviewed over the phone because he's in prison, right? So,
well, you know, they make such a big deal about the music score and so many other thriller atmosphere and all that. You know, the thing is that they're being ridiculous. Again, this is lawyers being ridiculous in the sense that Netflix and, you know, even I'm sure Picardi and Demos were in it to turn a profit. I mean, they're They're not doing this
Well-
they're not a .org, a nonprofit. They did it because they were interested in the story, and I'm sure that they saw the potential for it to make money. So,
and yes, and let's be clear here. This case is far from open and shut, no matter how hard Wisconsin wants us to pretend it is.
Oh yeah.
It is full of drama. Even if you just take everything prior to Teresa Halbach, it's got an element to it that is interesting, and if told in the right way, is going to keep people's interest. The fact that they framed them again just makes it, all more encompassing and interesting. And one other thing, no offense to Cherie, but I think like lawyers have to find an argument in anything and everything, right? Like they'll argue if you're staring at a clearly brick wall, they will argue that it's not a brick wall just to argue.
Well, some will, absolutely. But, I think the good lawyers, the Glenns and the Kellys and even the Beauty and Strings, even though we know that they screwed up pretty royally. But I think most decent lawyers, they come to a point and they're going to tell the client, it's time to cut the rope here. We're done. That's my opinion. Now I understand that they're in it to make money and stretch it out if they're making money off of it. And I want to make another comment here before we get rolling further with this document. Darkside posted an interview that Ken Krause did right before he released his book. And in that interview, about the 30-minute mark, he starts talking about defamation of character. So this had to go back to sometime in 2016. Did you listen to it, Rhonda or Christina? It's done in Darkside's.
I haven't had a chance.
Oh my God!
I'm try to find it, and I'm going to try to find it and put it in the chat.
Yeah, he starts talking about defamation, which I found really interesting because I'm thinking to myself, because I'd never heard this particular interview. I'm thinking to myself, are you the one that put that snake in Colborn's ear all that time ago? I bet he was. I can't prove that. That's just that's my opinion and a speculation. But why would he say it?
Was it today that she?
It was today.
Yep. Writing true crime. Okay.
Yep, it was today.
I'll put it in there.
Dark, if you want to, you can put that link in the chat so anybody that may be interested can, save that link and listen to it later. It's crazy. He goes on. He talks about all kinds. He talks about Brendan and all this shit that was left out. He's talking about somebody got the footage of these coerced confession interviews and put it on YouTube, but they took part of it out. Well, we know who did that, and it wasn't a truther, because there was about 30 minutes or so that was removed from the original thing. And, he also left out that they, for some reason, they came to an agreement with, they stipulated with the defense that they would stop the playback before Bob ever went into that room, and Brendan immediately started recanting. That the jury didn't get to hear that. So anyway, sorry to get off track. I just found that comment that he would make back in 2016 about defamation really interesting.
I think Ken Krause should be sued for defamation of Stephen Avery's character, personally.
No doubt. Okay. Rhonda, why don't you go ahead and read this episode 1? I don't think these are like extremely long. It may take a couple of pages. Why don't you read the first one, and I'll make a decision here whether we're going to continue to go through all of them, because we'll see if they've got stuff that's specifically that they're saying was added in to an episode that they've referred to as that acronym, whatever about Colborn. But whenever you're ready, please continue.
Okay. Episode 1. Viewers are initially introduced to Stephen Avery through what appears to be home video footage of his joyous return to the Avery family salvage yard and homestead after his prior conviction for rape was set aside. It's in the Kelly Declaration, docket number 120, addendum at paragraphs 1 through 2. From there, the series portrays Avery's identification as the suspect for the rape as engineered by representatives of the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. They made a case against him that night, end quote, by Walt Kelly. This series includes testimony of Sheriff's Department employees from depositions given in a civil case that Avery later brought against the county, the excerpts from which are interspersed with interpretive comments from Avery's civil suit attorneys, Stephen Glenn and Walt Kelly. Avery's criminal defense attorneys from both the circuit court and appellate level in the rape case, Avery's family members, and Avery himself. Mann relays that the unanimous conclusion of all of these individuals is that the law enforcement community knew or should have known at the time they pursued the rape charge against Avery that the actual perpetrator of the rape, Gregory Allen, was responsible. Avery's father is featured angrily calling the judge who presided over the trial as a son of a bitch, and Avery's parents are also shown describing their pain watching Avery endure the rape trial. Is that sorry, I don't mean to cut myself off, but is that supposed to strike the judge as something really bad that Pa Avery, called them a son of a bitch?
Well,
What's the point of what's the
it,
point of
it's
angrily calling the judge a son of a bitch? Come on.
It's a pile on. They're leaving out the emotion, and again, that's another thing I failed to mention, and Christina kind of commented on it. But this thriller atmosphere, if you think about, let's remove ourselves from a documentary and a movie, and you think about real life. I don't give a damn who you are, and you find yourself you're in some small town, and you have whatever cross paths with a law enforcement department that is less than salutary, and they've done things clearly against you that are probably, I mean, I'm not talking about, you're a good person, necessarily you followed every law. You put yourself in someone like Avery that's, he's done some burglaries and done some other, nothing too serious, but, shit he shouldn't have done, but he did. Even in that atmosphere, and then you think about what they did to him in the Penny Berenstain situation, that should scare the shit out. That would scare the hell out of anybody. It would me. I can tell you that they have that kind of power and influence that they can basically wreck your damn life and stick you in a cell. You're done.
Yeah.
So this thriller atmosphere they keep throwing around, well, that's scary as shit to me. I mean, I don't know about how these lawyers see it, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Avery's civil suit attorneys, Glenn and Kelly, feature prominently in the episode as they describe what is apparently the evidence that they intended to use to prove a civil case against the county, including, among other things, one, an alleged friendship between Sandy Morris and the detective who purportedly suggested to the rape victim that her description of the perpetrator sounded like Avery. 2, a sketch of the perpetrator prepared by a high-ranking member of the Sheriff's Department whom Glenn and Kelly alleged had access to Avery's mugshot as a guide for the sketch. He did. 3, a claim that City of Manitowoc police officer told the sheriff that Allen might be the suspect. 4, Assistant District Attorney's warnings to the District Attorney Dennis Vogel that Allen, rather than Avery, may have committed the crime. And 5, the discovery that in the Avery case file there was a copy of a complaint against Allen for a prior sexual assault charge for which he had been prosecuted by Vogel.
You want to read that footnote?
Yeah, I'll read the footnote first. Footnote 1, Netflix representatives advised Crone to find photos of Ms. Morris with the detective in order to establish them as quote-unquote very good friends. Netflix advised Chrome that this would, quote, establish a motive, end quote, for the sheriff to interfere with the investigation. What?
God.
Yeah, well, oh, okay. I'm rereading that now. Netflix reps had just told Chrome. Wait, what? I'm confused. I confused myself.
To find photos of the Sandra Morris that with that detective
Oh,
in order to establish them as very good friends.
okay. So Colborn's suggesting that Netflix was telling Chrome, "You better go find some photos of Miss Morris with what's her stupid face."
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay. Sorry, guys in the chat. I get confused sometimes when I'm doing my own reading. As a result, Glenn and Kelly suggest the case against the county for which they had demanded $36 million was essentially a slam dunk. This is consistent with Netflix's direction that the civil suit was to be portrayed as a virtually assured victory prior to the Halbach murder. To the contrary, Avery's former public defender is shown commenting that it was a, quote, crock of shit, end quote, that the Attorney General's office refused to pursue criminal charges against law enforcement representatives in connection with Avery's prosecution. Addendum at page 2, Glenn is also shown intoning mysteriously that the Sheriff's Department representatives are so, quote unquote, threatened by the lawsuit that they are writing, quote unquote, memos of things that happened, quote, 10 years earlier, end quote, over a copy of a document that will later be revealed as a memorandum written by plaintiff Andrew Colborn. As the episode draws to a close, viewers are informed by an Avery relative that, quote, something told her, end quote, that the county was, quote, not done with, end quote, Avery, and that they would make sure that they did not have to, quote, hand that man $36 million, end quote.
Yep, that was Kim Ducott.
Huh?
That was Kim Ducott.
Oh, yeah. Yep. This content is consistent with Netflix's direction that the episode should, quote, set up, unquote, for viewers the notion that Manitowoc County law enforcement were going to, quote, unquote, seek revenge against Avery because of his civil suit. Glenn is heard stating, as images of police cars are shown, that the one thing they did not warn Avery about was that if you pursue a civil rights case against a county in which you still live, you could be, quote unquote, charged with murder. At that point, images of the sheriff's department representatives, including plaintiff, rotate ominously on screen over foreboding music. Ooh. This is the audience's first introduction to the plaintiff in this case, Andrew Colborn, who is shown as one of the looming threats waiting to exact revenge on Avery. The episode concludes with brief audio of an apparent conversation between a law enforcement officer and a dispatcher asking in the early stages of the Halbach criminal investigation whether Stephen Avery is in custody.
Oh, damn. A lot of descriptors in that section you just read, and I know you caught it. I'm sure everyone out there caught it. All these add in descriptors that they put into to make the sun much worse than it really is.
Yeah.
So everything they are saying actually happened. And it's a true accounting of what went down, right? An apparent dispatch call asking if Stephen Avery was in custody. That dispatch call occurred. It occurred on November 5th, and it happened. It happened.
Absolutely. Do we have a body yet? Is Avery in custody? That was all in that
On
same
November
call,
5th.
but that's right, by Dennis Jacobs, probably an hour or so right after they found the BRAV.
Yeah. I just want to reread that last paragraph. The episode concludes with brief audio of an apparent conversation. There's nothing apparent about it. It was a
It
conversation
was.
between a law enforcement officer and a dispatcher asking in the early stages of the Halbach criminal investigation whether Stephen Avery is in custody. There's nothing apparent about it. It fucking happened.
That's right.
We heard it.
And
We
this
have
is
the call.
this last paragraph here where it says Colborn, who is shown as one of the looming threats waiting to exact revenge on Avery. Where the hell are they getting that from?
Yeah.
They're trying to create an atmosphere that Netflix or the filmmakers are saying that, oh, Colborn was over here. He was waiting to exact his revenge. This son of a bitch is not going to file a lawsuit on us. We'll show you. That's not true at all. I mean, to me, it's not true. It's pure conjecture, speculation, and piling on. Lawyer bullshit. Anyway.
Lawyer speak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, attorneys out there. Sheree knows I'm not talking about her. She knows she's better than that, but
we're going to get into some of these lower. You see down here at the bottom of the page is the last line there. It's got that CAPFF added in. So some of these things are added into these descriptors, these summaries. So I say we continue to read at least a few more of these. So
yeah,
Alice, are you able to read the next one? We'll just switch it up. Alice, are you able to read episode 2?
Yeah, sure.
You just take off whenever you're ready.
Okay. Episode 2. The second episode opens with audio of the phone call that Teresa Hallback placed, indicating what time she would be arriving at the Avery salvage yard and what would be the last day anyone else saw her alive. Addendum, page 23. It then launches into a disturbing home video of Mrs. Hallback several years prior to her death, in which she says that she wanted people to know if she dies that she was happy with what she did with her life. From there, Ma'am jumps back to Avery's release and an upbeat music track plays over video and photos of Avery and his new girlfriend, while Avery and others explain that he had set out to live his life anew. Netflix encouraged Chrome to include photos of Avery and his family to, quote, make them look like a very happy family, unquote. Netflix likewise encouraged the use of, quote, sweet photos, unquote, of Avery and his nephew, Brendan Dassey, as a child, quote, to reinforce the sense of injustice and calamity, unquote. This was the series' goal.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I have to jump back in again, that whole last paragraph. What is wrong with Netflix or whoever, Moira and Laura? What's wrong with them putting pictures and video of them looking happy? Whether it was to make them look like a very happy family, who the fuck cares? I mean, it was a happy moment. The man just walked out of being in prison wrongfully convicted for 18 fucking years. It was a happy moment. They should, and if they didn't make them look like a very happy family, in that moment, they were a very happy family. And so they should have been. And encourage the use of sweet photos of Avery and his nephew. I'm like furious right now. I'm furious with that whole fucking paragraph. Sorry, carry on.
No, you're completely right, Rhonda. I mean, but what? So they put some a sad bit or a hard bit to take. They put a different version of music. But when it's a happy, like Stephen being released after being fucking wrongfully convicted, then they're not supposed to do them happy. They're not supposed to make Stephen look human. You know what I mean? Because as far as they're concerned, he's a a troublemaker and a deviant and a miscreant and all the rest of it. And if people start falling in love with Stephen, then it means that, you know, they've got to apologise for what they got wrong.
Well, you know, the further point, you know, even you know, the state should have apologized for what they did to him. But even beyond that, even if it wasn't Stephen and then later Brendan, it's the actions of law enforcement and state authorities that I find so egregious in what they did to re-jail Avery, and then obviously to pass Brendan around like a party favor and throw his ass in jail for life. It's ridiculous. That's what angers me. You know, I understand they wanted to show the Avery family and you know the getting reunited, pictures of Stephen when he was growing up and that kind of thing. But still, you know, people have to picture themselves. You know, they lived on a junkyard. They didn't have a huge amount of extra money. Of course, there were other things that they did to have fun and that kind of thing. But these weren't wealthy people. I'm sure they did okay. They ate day in, day out, and they didn't do without too much of the basic necessities of life. But they were not wealthy, and they were certainly not viewed very well in the community. They live out there on that nasty junkyard. It was just junk people. So,
and you know what? And who gives a shit whether they were wealthier? We don't get to determine. A person doesn't get to determine whether another person's life is forfeit, right? Just because Stephen came from a different life background than what the society wants us to believe the norm is, doesn't make his story or Brendan's story any less relevant. You can't frame people just because you think they're beneath you in the social class. You're not allowed to treat people like
that's what
shit.
they did. And that's what they did.
That's exactly what they did. They said
That's right.
He ain't worth it. He's worth more to us as a prisoner than he is in society. We can make more from him if we put him in prison than we will if he's on the streets, because he's not conforming to what we say society should be. At the root of this is a very sick, twisted thinking of the people in the world.
Well, you think about his potential to win. You know, my guess is that if it had moved forward and they'd got the testimony of Vogel and Kosarik, my guess is there would have been an out-of-court settlement somewhere between $3 and $8 million. And, I think the number crunchers rolled the dice on the lawyers and said, look, let's go a different direction here and spend $2 or $3 million and throw him back in jail. Right?
Well, they spend $2 or $3 million. They all profit, right? The system profits and they work for the system. If they hand Stephen Avery $10 million, they don't get anything from that.
That's
and
right.
More importantly, they also would have suffered. There would have been a cap on salary increases. There would have been a cap on everything because they had to pay out. They want you to think they had the insurance coverage at that time.
No, they didn't. No, they had some. They had some insurance, but it was nowhere near that amount. Plus, there would have been reputational damage and all the other things that we've discussed. And Alice, you had a comment?
I'm sorry.
I mean, they look down on the Averys. The cops, Sandra Morris, some of the residents that actually live in Wisconsin, even to this day, look down on the Averys because they don't conform to the norms of being part of the community and going to church every Sunday and going to the Christmas fair every year that it's on, or the bake day sale or whatever. You know what I mean? And because they weren't like that, they looked down on them. So as far as they were concerned, and I don't mean any disrespect to the Averys at all, this is just my opinion on how the police perceive the Avery family.
Even the community.
And the community, yeah, is that they are not worth the soul or the shit that they stand in. You know what I mean? And it's no right, but it's like that when you live in a rural place. I mean, I live in a wee town. I mean, it's not even it's like a wee village, town, and if somebody is arrested or something like that, it gets round Pennycook so fast. It's unbelievable. But you've always got the, you know, the wee bits added on. Oh, Jimmy up the road got arrested last night because he had a knife in his hand. And then it'll be, oh, Jimmy up the road got arrested last night because he had a knife and a baseball bat in his hand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just the rumours and things like that that can come from a rural place like that is unbelievable.
Oh, yeah.
And if Sandra Morris was going about calling Stephen everything that Gregory Allen was and was doing, then no wonder they people looked down on the Avery family. You know what I mean? Because even members of their own family were bringing them down to nothing and calling them nothing. You know what I mean? Because in my opinion, this all started with Sandra Morris because she thought that she was better than the rest of her family because she was married to a cop, and she thought that she could get away with things that other people couldn't because she was married to a cop. You know?
Well, yeah, there were a few, there were a few incidents that happened, prior, some robberies, and stole some grilled cheese sandwiches and some beer and change, and just dumb. It's just dumb shit,
Yeah, that to me, that is a bored group of boys, you know what I mean, who are looking to get up to mischief. You know what I mean?
Too much time on their hands, right?
Yeah, exactly. I'd see the point if they went in and they robbed the hotel, they took all the liquor out the shop, they took all the fags out the shop, they took the fucking stools out the pub or whatever, I mean, he was no angel, but he didn't need to be treated the way that they treated him. And there was no way in hell that they were going to give Stephen Avery £36 million.
Oh, no.
Because that was going to end up that the Averys could be richer than maybe some of the families that actually fucking lived in Wisconsin.
Oh, they would have been. Absolutely. They'd certainly been elevated.
There is no way that they were going to let that happen. So something had to be done. And unfortunately, a young woman's life was lost in the process of things getting done.
And they used it. They absolutely used it. Absolutely. Okay. So, I think we should continue on because this brings up some, because they're now adding in, of course, a lot of this shit's redacted. That's just the way we got it. We don't have any control over that. But, I think we should continue on with this one and maybe another one of a couple of these, just so we have a clear understanding of what the plaintiffs are trying to tell Judge Ludwig, which is such bullshit. Anyway, continue on when you're.
Okay. Where did I finish off? Yeah. Glenn also explains that Avery has become something of a quote-unquote celebrity in the criminal justice field, with politicians posing for photos with him. Addendum at PP 2-3. The audience learns that in October 2005, a criminal justice reform bill was introduced as quote-unquote the Avery Bill, and Avery was likely to receive $450,000 from the state of Wisconsin as compensation for his years wrongly served for the Bernstein rape. Glenn explains that this will keep Avery from accepting a quote-unquote lowball settlement in his civil suit. What appear to be quote-unquote greatest hits excerpts from the civil suit depositions followed, in which it appears that Kelly is disseminating Manitowoc County's witnesses with the air of an malleable gossip, relishing his role as a
Rancontier.
racketeer.
I think.
Then dishes
Go ahead.
Glenn then dishes that they learned that the lawsuit about some quote-unquote serious meat in the form of a telephone call that was received by Mr. Colborn when he previously worked as a jailer. Addendum at page 3. While Glenn speaks, video imagery of Mr. Colborn appears in the background. Quote-unquote, what we learn, Glenn says dramatically, quote, is that while Stephen Avery is sitting in prison now for a decade, a telephone call comes into the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. An image of Mr. Colborn report is shown in the background while Glenn is speaking, from another law enforcement agency, saying that they had someone in custody who said that he had committed an assault in Manitowoc, and an assault for which somebody was currently in prison. In fact, Mr. Colborn testified that the caller indicated that someone in another county may have committed an assault and that someone might be in the Manitowoc County Jail for that assault. Plaintiff's response to Crome's proposed finding of the facts number 9. The series next jumps to scenes from Mr. Colborn's deposition in the Avery case, but the episode admits scenes that would have disclosed that Mr. Colborn testified that he transferred the call to the detective division. Glenn then continues, quote, Manitowoc doesn't have a huge number of major assaults where people go to prison, and certainly where people would still be in prison. At a minimum, somebody ought to check this out, unquote. Docket 120-2, 1905 to 1941, amended page 3, Mr. Colborn's deposition in the Avery civil suit. As shown in episode 1 of MAM, Avery was transferred between several Wisconsin state prisons throughout his sentence for the rape. He was not housed in Manitowoc County Jail in 1995. Glenn elicited deposition testimony confirming that Mr. Colborn had attempted to transfer the call to the detective department, as that was the proper department to handle any such call. Mentions of the transfer of the call is excluded entirely from episode 2. MAM also includes a graphic as Glenn is speaking that states, quote, 1995, Gregory Allen is arrested for sexual assault in Brown County. Andrew Colborn receives call about inmate confession, unquote. In fact, Mr. Colborn testified that he received the call at issue in, quote, 1994 and 1995. Glenn continues, speaking thereafter, stating, quote, the fellow who got that call was named Colborn, and you might say there should be a record of him immediately making a report on this. There might be a record of his immediately contacting a supervising officer. There might be a record of him contacting a detective who handles sexual assault cases. There might be some record of it. But if you thought any of those things, you'd be wrong, because there isn't any record in 95, 96, 97, 98, 2000, 2001, 2002, or 2003. In fact, as noted above, Glenn's statement as portrayed in MAM were demonstrably inconsistent with what Mr. Colborn testified at his deposition, at the Avery civil case, which was that he transferred the call to the detective division of the Sheriff's Department and that he did not have authority to pursue it further. Ma'am then displays a graphic with years running from a timeline image of Mr. Colborn's photograph above it and a statement after the year 2003 that states DNA evidence exonerates Stephen Avery.
I want to
Can we
pause.
pause?
Yeah,
Okay,
go
thank
ahead.
you.
No, yeah, go ahead, Christina, with what you got.
So let's be clear here. Even if Colborn didn't write a report, the person he transferred the call to should have wrote a report. That's all Making a Murderer is putting on the screen, right? Because he claims that he transferred it to the detective division. The detective division should have then opened an investigation and looked into what Brown County was saying, right? And that would have generated a report. Now, what's interesting, even though it isn't talked about in Making a Murderer, is we have Jean Couché doing those oddball interviews in '96, if I recall correctly.
It was 96.
Mm-hmm. So that to me looks like them trying to CYA in case, let's say hypothetically, Glenn and Kelly knew about that call in '96 and they were going to say something during Avery's Court of Appeals proceedings. They would have had those reports to say, yes, we looked into it, we didn't find anything, to try and minimize their culpability in knowingly keeping an innocent man in prison. And why they didn't try and use that when asked has always struck me as odd. Like, why didn't Couché and them say, hey, we did these interviews to try and sort it out? Why are they trying to, it just makes me wonder, what else are they trying to hide? If they have it,
I think they're trying to cover it up. That's what I think. They're trying to bury it. They're trying to.
but
Couché,
they have those reports.
Well, Couché was trying to. To me, from those reports you got, to me, Couché was trying to find out what was known and unknown at the time, and it didn't go any further. To me, it was like they were trying to bury it, because even if, I think that. Personally, I know he was just a jailer, but I still think that Colborn should have written something down about that call, because I don't give a shit how Kratz tried to downplay it. That was a unique call. I'm sure they don't get calls like that every day. I'm sure even a large department does not get calls like that. So that's number one. Number two, no report generated, as far as we know, that I've seen, of any Brown County detective or officer making that call when they were questioning. That we talked about this before, and you were right. They had already pulled up Allen's resume, as it were, his record, compilation of record, and they knew the kind of shit that guy had done. So they're thinking to themselves, oh, damn, So why wouldn't there have been a report generated by the Brown County detective? Okay. They did. I just, to me,
unless somebody has gone in, and who would have the authority and ability to remove reports from files?
Well,
I would have to say
you're going to the
state, DCI or AG.
Yeah, you're going to the AG's office, in my opinion. But the thing is that they couldn't. The state, by the time Avery got out, couldn't have known for sure what Glenn and Kelly potentially had, and maybe had talked to somebody at Brown County, had a report from Brown County. I don't know. him writing a report years later is, to me, is a clear red flag. Because if the call was unimportant, then you make it unimportant and you don't report anything at all after that. You're done. But they did.
Right. The fact that you write the report in 03 makes you look guilty.
That's right.
Also, don't forget that records request we found that was written by an employee of Glenn and Kelly in 96, specifically asking about alternative suspects in Gospodera. I always found that odd too.
Yeah, he's the one that passed away. Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
The thing that bothers me the most about this whole part is immaterially whether there should have been a reports, period. There should have been a report for Brown County, for the officer that made the phone call. They should have put a report saying that they contacted so-and-so regarding Gregory Allen, yada, yada, yada. There should have been a report from Colborn or the prison saying that they had received a phone call. And then it all depends on who was in charge in the detective division at that point in time as well. Because if they're getting a call for a jailer or another police officer, because it's coming for another police officer, so it should have been looked into more seriously, in my opinion.
Yeah, there should have been there should have been some kind of documentation to follow, especially from Brown County. I made contact with Detective blah 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 in Manitowoc on this date and time. He says he says they got the right guy. We're moving on, or whatever,
Yeah, exactly. But there isn't a report between the Brown County officer phoning the jail, and there isn't a report between Colborn making that call or whatever. But then if he's transferring a call to the jail, to the detective division, then the detective division should have made a report as well, that they received a call about this, that, and the other, and it didn't. But the thing that bothers me the most, I mean, there is a possibility that that person is no longer here anymore, but why has this Brown County officer no came forward?
Well, I think he was told not. I think he was told not to.
But if he's retired or something like that now, he's got nothing to lose.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
That's true.
So why not come forward to Kathleen and say, look, I was the officer that made that fucking call. You know what I mean? So, I mean, even though Colborn's saying he received the call and that, so we know that the call happened, but did it really happen? You know what I mean? Because there's no paperwork to fucking follow it up.
Well, is the links that they went to in this, I suspect that the call did happen, and the questioning that Cachet did back in 96. That leads me to believe wholeheartedly, as Christina has pointed out, it did happen. It was known in the department, and Cachet went to try to find out who knew what was being talked about, as cops talk. What was being because that's kind of the general. If you read his interviews with these three other officers, that was the general theme. He was trying to find out basically who knew what. I think the call did happen personally, and it's a huge red flag to me that this memo was generated right after Avery got out. It's pure bullshit. It's complete bullshit.
If it was that important, why make a fucking report about it?
That's right.
If I made a report for every call that I received, I wouldn't be at my seat. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's ridiculous.
It is. All right. Anybody else got anything before we continue?
Do you think the DA's office told them to write a report? Do you think they networked with the DA's office about what had happened and got advice from them?
Maybe. It's possible. I'm not, that's just a speculative thought, but I think it's entirely possible.
Because I think they work pretty closely together. And I think that Peterson would have called someone would he have called Kusurik? And Kusurik would
Well,
have called Vogel?
you talking about 2003? You talking about 2003?
Yeah.
I think it would have
Over
been more
that
of a.
call.
Well, he may have made those calls, but I think he would have called Roar.
Who, Peterson?
Yeah, I think if he was going to make because he's the one it's in his hands now. I mean, yeah, obviously
But
the
I think-
shit could roll downhill to these other people, but Roar was the one on the hot seat. This shit got dumped in his lap. So
I know, but I think Peterson still deferred to Kusurik because this was Kusurik's baby, right?
yeah, right. Yeah, oh yeah, you're right. But
I wonder if he called him and if Kusurik didn't call Vogel or Roar.
Possible.
And they said write a report, which is writing that report was the stupidest thing they ever could have done.
there was.
You know, it makes no sense. Like, I don't understand how they thought having Colborn write a report was going to make it any better for them. Like, what universe? What crap were they smoking?
I don't know. It's worse. You just have Colborn say, "Shit, I don't remember." If he's questioned on it, by chance, some detective comes forward and says, "I'll talk to somebody at the jail and at the detective division." Colborn said, "Shit, I don't remember." Come on, guys, that's a long time ago. End of story. But I think because Couchet
had, I don't recall about everything anyway.
True, but Couchet did those interviews in '96, and that tells me they fucking knew. They knew that this had been talked about, and they're trying to deny it at the time. That to me and I think Couchet again. I think he was on a fact finding mission to try to find out who knew what. It didn't really go that far, and it just kind of died out until 2003.
He was not on a fact-finding mission. He was on a cover my ass.
Well,
mission in case Stephen gets a court date, so it doesn't all fall in my lap. He was not trying to find no fact. Don't be nice to the man just because. No. You're taking my meaning wrong. I mean, finding out what these other people knew and what was being talked about. Not trying to make facts about a case. He's trying to find out what other people knew. That's what I think. Not that he was trying to do anything right for Stephen at all.
Yeah, who in the office knows about this call?
That's right.
It happened and things like that. Yeah, I could see that happening.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I could really see that happening. And I mean, as for writing the report, I mean, could it have been that Glenn and that found this phone call and that first? So, they've got to disclose documents and everything like that. So they've went, oh shit, they know about this call. They've pulled Andy in, asked him about the call. Maybe he remembered something. Maybe, something like that or something like that. Right, well, you better make a report so as that we're crossing all our T's and dotting our I's, thinking that they were doing the right thing and covering their arse. But that just made them look even more fucking suspicious, because why was these reports no done back in 95 and 96? You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
that's right. And where's the report from? Where's the report from Brown County? So anyway. Yeah. All right, let's move on and get through with this episode.
At this point in the series, the viewers have been given the impression that Mr. Colborn received a call regarding the possible innocence of Avery and did nothing whatsoever about that call for 8 years. During the early stages of production, Netflix representatives complained that the details surrounding the call were quote-unquote confusing, and that, quote, it seemed very thin that Colborn not having a specific knowledge of who called him would be key to the case, unquote. Netflix added that the revelation intentionally seemed quote-unquote weak. In addition...
Wait, hold on a second. Despite these concerns, redacted. Oh my God, what the hell are they saying here? Go ahead anyway.
Yeah, exactly, Jack, yeah. In addition, because the phone call was, quote, something we keep going back to throughout the series, unquote, Netflix recommended bolstering it with a chart to emphasize, quote, connections between various law enforcement officers, unquote, reference in this segment, extension 1. Episode 2 then continues to feature Glynn explaining how Mr. Colborn allegedly realizing that he had, quote, screwed up big time, unquote, by allegedly doing nothing with the call, purportedly joined with other sheriff's departments personally to participate in a, quote, conspiracy of silence, unquote, at Avery's expense. Addendum page 3. As Glynn ultimately intimates, this directly sets the stage for accusations made directly by Avery on screen that the sheriff's department framed him for the Hallback murder.
You can read those. These are, let me see, yeah, we won't read all these, but you can read just read the first two there in the boxes. Go back up. Give it a second. Docket 120-2. It's given the time there of the episode 2025 to 2113. You can read that.
Glynn continues, quote, now 2003 is a year that has meaning because that's when Stephen Avery got out. And the day he got out, or the day after, that's when Colborn decides to contact a superior officer named Link, and Link tells him to write a report. And then they go have contact with the sheriff. Why does it happen when it didn't happen 8 years earlier? I mean, I think I know the answer. I think the answer is pretty clear. These people realised that they had screwed up big time. Colborn realised it, Link as his superior realised it, and the sheriff realised it.
And, we've covered this this is actually probably the fourth or fifth time we've seen this in some capacity throughout these filings and these hundreds of freaking documents. But there's nothing wrong in what he said there. And I think they're trying to say that there is. And there really isn't. No. Because as we've detailed this call, it's highly suspicious why Colborn would write a memo 8 years after the fact if if it was really unimportant. Is that everyday? It's not an everyday occurrence that somebody calls and says, we got a guy here that says he committed a crime that you guys got somebody locked up for. There's no way that's a normal occurrence. And they knew it. And just as he said, they screwed up big time and they knew they did.
Also, when did Colborn become a cop? When did he get promoted out of the jail and into a car?
97, I think. I think it was 96, late 96 or sometime in 97, I think. Yeah. Christina, if I'm remembering right.
Uh-huh. I think it was 96 as well. I think that he took the call. I think he kept his mouth shut, and his next review, he was promoted into a car. I think that's how it went.
Exactly, Christina. That's what I was just going to say. In my opinion, he got that call. He went to his superiors. He was told, keep your trap shut. We've got the right one in jail. And then they were like, nudge, nudge, wink, wink. You keep your mouth shut and we'll get you into the police department, mate. Yeah. And then that's when he became a cop. Yeah, I've had these
Sean brings
thoughts.
Go ahead.
I just also want to add, he lied under oath on the stand and in his deposition because he claims that this was the only time his integrity had been questioned as an officer. But he was wrote up for inmate money being missing.
Theft, yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So he wasn't charged because an inmate is never going to prove a cop stole from them. It's never going to happen.
No.
But it's clear that he helped himself to, and well, it looks like it's very likely that Andrew Colborn stole money from an inmate that he was processing out. And yeah, and it was documented, and then he was rewarded after that. It's just crazy.
Sean had asked a good question here, but I don't want to get too far past it here. He's talking about why wasn't it placed into the file for the Bernstein case? And, that's another big question because, this, we talked about this before. This memo that he wrote was not on a standard form. It was unnumbered and it went into the sheriff's safe. That is a really good point. That's part of it too, which to me throws yet another red flag in it. Was the sheriff afraid someone was going to steal it? Was a sheriff afraid it's going to become, a part of the case that anybody could go reference at any time? I don't know. That's another red flag for whatever reason that they did it. That's my opinion.
Hey, Jack,
Yeah.
Christina, and Alice, I just wanted to, this might just be a small little detail, but I'm just wondering, wasn't it Peterson who initially told, I don't remember Colborn going through Link about this. I thought that he told Link, and then Link and Colborn went to see Peterson, and Peterson said, you better write a report. That's what I thought. I mean, again, it really is, sixes
I
at
think
this
that's
point.
the story that's the story on record. Yes.
Okay. Like I said, it isn't like a major thing, but that's what I seem to remember. And Yoga for the Ageless had said something similar in the comments and in the chat. And so I was just like, you know what, I'm going to put this to bed once and for all.
Yeah, I think as Christina said, that's their official story, but I don't think it happened that way. I think it happened
I don't either.
Quite a bit differently. I think that it was a known thing right after that call came in. It was discussed. It was, a few of them that were in the know found out about the call. Maybe they were there. Who the hell knows? But there was absolutely no reason for Couchet to have questioned these three other detectives, officers, whatever, otherwise. There's just no way in 1996.
I don't think they have set up that many people. Okay. I think they've set up a few, but we're talking maybe 10 and 20 years max, I would like to think, for violent crimes anyway. So when he got the call, they want to pretend like they don't talk about what they do, but everybody knows when you're at work, you shoot the shit about things you've done and things you've gotten away with and all of that. And, the great stories and all that. So when the call came in, even though Colborn hadn't been there but a few years by that point, he knew about Stephen Avery and he knew about Gregory Allen. So I'm sure it didn't, even though he's not a rocket scientist, the light bulb didn't take that long to go off. And so it's just, they're trying to dumb down themselves and make themselves look inept and ignorant and like they don't talk to one another. But what's interesting, and I'll say this and then I'll stop. I was listening to the Roger Radumance interview again today.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he says at the end of it, Manitowoc and Calumet County have always worked hand in hand like one unit. And that was since he was a juvenile. So if Manitowoc and Calumet work together, Manitowoc Police and Manitowoc Sheriff's Department work together, everybody knows everything. I mean, they're cops. They hang out. They belong to all the same, the bowling league, the softball league, the Police Benevolent Association. They do all the fundraisers. So to pretend like they didn't communicate with one another is really trying to sell a story that most people, if they logically think about it, know is not true. And I'm gonna stop there.
Well, sure. Yeah. I mean, just to comment to that, and then we'll continue on. I think it's ludicrous to think that I do think that there's certainly, just like any other job that people work. You have certain groups of people that you hang with. It's just form and kind of a natural thing, and you discuss things with those people that you wouldn't necessarily discuss with others. I think it's the same way for them. Certain things are compartmentalized for a few to know, and others that necessarily don't. But to think that these different law enforcement agencies that were right beside each other didn't have, at least with a person like Gregory Allen, and I'm sure other criminals as well, people that were, they had their eye on, that they didn't know, it's complete ludicrous. You got to question your intelligence. That's absolute bullshit. It really is. Christina's right. So anyway, why don't you read this next one, Alice, the one I've highlighted. We won't read all these, but we'll read some.
So Glenn continues, quote, so Link tells Colborn to write a report. The sheriff tells Link, get me the report. The sheriff put the report in a safe. That's how much he cares about documenting this thing. Well, obviously, it doesn't do anybody. It certainly doesn't do Stephen any good to document that 8 years after the fact, because Stephen Avery has been sitting in a cage, unquote.
Precisely. That's exactly right. They're covering their ass. The whole thing, yeah. You can read this next one too.
Avery's voiceover after civil deposition experts state, quote, a lot of people told me to watch my back. Most of the time, I didn't even believe them. But then, sitting and doing depositions, I don't know. It kind of changed my mind. They were covering something up, unquote.
Absolutely. And Avery's not, a highly intelligent person. Even he could see it. I'm sure he did right away.
Yeah.
Let's go and let me highlight this next one here and you can read it. That one.
Steve Glynn asserts, quote, this was an unconscionable withholding of information that would have been of use to Stephen Avery's lawyers. If that information had come to light in 1995, Stephen Avery would have gotten out in 1995. So they cost Stephen Avery 8 years of his life. This is as close to a conspiracy of silence as I think you could find in a case, unquote.
That's right. That's exactly what it was, a conspiracy of silence.
Yep.
And then this next one, and then we'll move on. Hold on, let me highlight it. Read that.
Interview with Walt Kelly, who states, quote, October of 2005, from the perspective of the Manitowoc County government and their defence lawyers, I believe they all knew they were in the most serious kind of trouble. There was a very grave prospect of a very, very substantial verdict. Their insurers have taken the position that because of the nature of the allegations against the county, the sheriff and the DA, the policies do not cover, which would mean that the Manitowoc County itself and the sheriff and the DA would be on the hook for those damages in the civil suit.
There you go. Because they went outside the purview of their office to do what they did. Insurers won't cover that. If it's accidental, they will. Even if it borders on that, they probably might not cover all of something that is an officer does that's outside of his purview. Abuse of his office, I guess, is the best way I can put it. They might help cover, but this is what happened is intentional, and they're not going to cover that. I think it's probably a rider in their policy. They're not going to cover it. So I think that's spot on.
That's what annoys me about. I mean, this could have been resolved years ago. It could have been resolved in 2003 when this, I mean, fair enough, the cop who made the call in the first place could have still been working at that point. But if they're retired now, you know, why not come forward and say, I was the one that made that call, you know?
Yeah, it would be great to hear.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there could be a simple explanation like the person isn't here anymore, which is unfortunate. But if they are still here and they're still sitting on it and they've seen this in 2016 right the way up until now and all the things that are coming out and have come out, why are they sitting on it? You know, and that's what bugs me. I know they've got to live there and I know they've got to still mix with these people and everything like that. But in a situation like this, the people who stay silent are just as bad as the people who did it, in my opinion.
That's right. That's right.
They're an
Yeah.
accessory. Absolutely. Why don't you read these
The
next two?
only
One-
thing-
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just going to say something I say all the time. The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men and women to do nothing. And that's
Yep.
what happened in this case. And
Absolutely.
I'm glad you're going to read that because I find what he says about Alan quite interesting, knowing what we know.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yep.
why don't you read
Yep.
read these next?
Okay. Glenn's interview continues, quote, "We don't need to have somebody to tell us that this is going to have an effect on law enforcement. Of course it has an effect. Imagine what it's like when you're going to say that you're a liar and that you hid evidence and that you deliberately prosecuted a person that you knew or at least had reason to know wasn't guilty of the crime. And putting all that aside, by the way, in terms of your own professionalism, there's a guy out there raping and beating women while the guy that you put in prison is sitting in a cell, unquote." Glenn continues, quote, we were just on the absolute edge of getting ready to go after the named defendants in the case with depositions when I got a call from Walt Kelly, who tells me that he has gotten a call from a journalist asking if either of us would care to comment on the apparent intersection in life between Stephen Avery and a woman who has gone missing in the Manitowoc area, who we later learned to be Teresa Hallback, unquote.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, you know, to try to paint this all necessarily towards Colborn, I think is wrong. Obviously, he has some involvement because he allegedly took the phone call, and then basically nothing was done. But they're the ones that admitted that this happened. This is not Netflix saying, "Oh," or Laura, the filmmaker saying, "Oh, look, we're going to create an incident." No, they put on screen what the official statement is. How is that defamation in any way at all? It's not. So, yeah. Anybody got anything about those for women?
Right, he's straight to the point with it, Jack.
He is.
You know what I mean? They're getting ready to do the depositions of the two most prominent figures in this whole fucking case for the 85 case. And then they're getting a phone call about a missing woman.
Hey, it's like we'd say before. Shit fell out of the sky, fell out of the trees for him, and boom, wow, well, look what we got here.
Yeah.
We're off to the races, and Avery's in jail. So, all right, you can continue on there at this next section.
Okay.
We'll read the rest of this one. Go ahead.
Right. Episode 2 then shows what appears to be video footage of the search of Miss Hallback's vehicle on the Avery salvage yard, as well as audio of the call made by the woman who located Miss Hallback's RAV4 on the property. Hallelujah. Low staccato tones can be heard ominously in the background. News footage regarding Teresa Hallback's disappearance is followed by footage of an Avery interview in which he says that anyone could have access to his property to plant evidence, and accuses the county of possibly doing quote-unquote something with Teresa Hallback and trying to quote to plant evidence on me unquote, adding that he quote wouldn't put nothing past the county unquote.
All true.
Yep. After footage from press conferences by authorities, Avery is heard saying, quote, all I can think is they're trying to railroad me again, unquote. After a search of Avery's property is shown, Avery continues, quote, I ain't been home. They've been searching, you know, how hard it is to put evidence in the house or on the property. The sheriff was out to get me the first time. How do I know he ain't got nothing to do with it this time, unquote. After more news footage, Avery continues, all these memories and everything else, and they're just sketching me out again. Following a montage of news reports, video of Miss Hallback's family speaking to interviewers, a vigil for Miss Hallback, and excerpts from a law enforcement press conference, Avery says tearfully, quote, you know, we're all victims and they just won't leave us alone. They just keep it up, unquote. A press conference discloses that Avery has been arrested, but Walt Kelly is heard allegedly telling a news reporter that he does not know where Avery is being held. Footage of an interrogation of Avery is shown in which he says that Miss Hallback's bones and vehicle key and Avery's blood were planted on his property, stating, quote, see, if somebody else plants that shit there, you ain't going to see it, unquote. The investigator is heard asking him, quote, you think two officers who don't know you? Amendment 5, the Hallback Special Prosecutor, Ken Kratz, is then shown explaining that Avery's DNA was found on the Toyota key. Afterward, Avery is heard telling the news media as he is transported to jail, quote unquote, I'm innocent. The episode concludes as Avery is heard saying, quote, you know, last time it took me 18 years to prove my innocence. This time I don't know how long, unquote. Over the series theme music.
Yeah, they bring up music a lot. Well, I think that's it's a good descriptor, and it's a decent summary. But again, all these things happen. They're trying to say there's something wrong with Netflix and the filmmakers making us a presentable program. Does it have an effect? Of course it does. But you wouldn't want to watch someone trying to present information to you surrounded with music that is unappealing and doesn't fit the scene. That would be dumb. Why do it? Why do your project? You know, it goes all into how they presented the information. And to me, I think there's really kind of a hint of jealousy in this. I know that Kratz was extremely jealous of Making Murder its success. He was so upset about it because he blathered on it often about it.
Yeah, but can you imagine it, Jack? I mean, what they're talking about music and images and everything like that. I mean, it is bloody ridiculous. So what? They put a bit of weirdo, freaky music, or, you know, can you imagine sitting watching Jaws and Jaws is coming for them and you don't hear the doo
Right.
you know what I mean? And you start hearing some sort of melody or fucking jingle or something like that. They're coming to get you. It's coming to get you. You know
Right.
what I mean? It is so fucking stupid how they're going on about the music that's been put in or anything like that. You know what I mean? It is. I mean, oh
Well,
man, every film, every TV show, every horror, even a fucking love story for fuck's sake, has got some type of music over each different scene so that you're getting the emphasis of what that scene is supposed to mean. If it's a thriller or something like that, it's to get you on the edge of your seat. You know what I mean? Things up the characters, you know, it's just stupid how they're going on. So what? They put an image up to Colborn when they're talking about Colborn getting a phone call from a Brown County officer about somebody being innocent in fucking jail. You know what I mean? It is just ridiculous. And it's
well,
making him look even more stupid than what he already looks like.
and it to me it proves nothing at all. You know, to me, this kind of thing, you know, with music and voiceovers, this adds texture and depth to what you're presenting. Whether that music moves you emotionally or not, that's what it does. And sometimes you don't even really realize it until maybe an afterthought, you know, of how the music can you know kind of carry you here and there. Did it shape and form any of my basis for what I saw in the film? No, it didn't. It made it more enjoyable for sure. Made it more palatable, absolutely. But did it change factually a fucking thing? No, it did not. I think you're right. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
With that said, I don't know how many more of these. I don't think we really need to read any more because this is kind of I mean, it's not exactly the same as the summary. They've added stuff in, obviously, that they wanted to include in their little acronym there about the Colborn stuff. But you guys, if you want to read more of these, we can. But I just, this, like I said, this 70 pages plus of them covering each episode, basically of what we already know.
Yeah.
I don't know if Rhonda's back yet. Christina, are you okay with if we just move on?
Here.
Yes, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. See, we're getting, we're go ahead.
They're just doing the same, Jack. They're just picking out certain bits and certain quotations for somebody that is suiting their narrative, you know.
Cherry picking.
Because, yeah, exactly. They're cherry picking certain things. You know, like that he said no, sir, but they put it as whatever, but he still says fucking no. You know what I mean? It's still the same answer. So,
That's right. Nothing's
don't be
changed.
such a pernickety bastard.
Yeah. Quit being so childish. It's the same thing, man. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
This is document, like I said, this is document 331. If it's not in the library, I'm going to ask yours or your Zoe to make sure that all the rest of the documents get uploaded. I haven't looked in a few days. They may have done it, and I just don't know. But if they're not, they will be. In the interim, I will add a link to the video description to everything we present today, just in case we're not there. So let's move on to document 332. Let me fix this.
Can you drop that for me, Jack?
I will.
I don't have.
Actually, I'll put the next I'll put the next couple in the Discord chat. That way you'll. Give me just 1 second. Yeah, there's 32, 33, and 34. So this next document, Make sure I'm on the right one. Yeah, 332. I chuckled when I saw this. I'm like, plaintiff's emergency expedited rule 7B motion to temporarily restrict public access. Yeah, no shit. Emergency expedited rule 7? Really? We're in an emergency situation? Oh my God. So once you get that downloaded there, Rhonda, if you want to read this one, it's this is only a 3-page document, so.
Okay.
While she's downloading it, has it been brought up that Barker is filing this as she has her own firm now. She works for Rockstead Law. In the beginning of this, she was partner in a firm, or not partner, but she was part of another firm. Remember, one of her declarations complained about having to go down 2 floors to use the scanner or something, and making excuses for why she was missing emails that Lita Walker had sent her. But now, in some of these filings, if you look, it says Rockstead Law. So I wonder if she has to work on this on her own time, or if she has left the firm and is now trying to branch out on her own.
I don't know.
Thought that was interesting.
I know Burnett's been, certainly part of what she's filed. So I'm not. You may be right. I don't know. We'd have to take a little digging to find that out. Okay,
What
Rhonda,
was that you were talking about?
I'm sorry.
I was just wondering who that was that.
April
Rockstead Barker. She's Colborn's main attorney, along with George Burnett.
Okay.
You get it? You get her downloaded?
Yeah, I did. Oh, there it is. I just couldn't see it. There it is. Okay. Okay. Do you want me to read this one you said?
Yep, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Plaintiff's emergency expedited rule 7H motion to temporarily restrict public access. Pursuant to Rule 5.2D, the federal rules of civil procedure, Civil Local Rule 79D4 and Section 2.G.1 of the Electronic Case Filing Policies and Procedure Manual for this court, plaintiff, by his undersigned counsel, respectfully moves the court to direct the clerk to modify docket entries numbers 325 and 331 to restrict from public access documents that were intended by plaintiff's counsel to be filed as restricted until the court decides the merits of defendants Chrome Media, LLC, Laura Riccardi and Moira Demos, confidentiality designations with respect to materials that are described therein. In further support of this motion, plaintiff asserts as follows. 1. Defendants, Chrome Media LLC, Laura Riccardi, and Moira Demos have designated their production communications and email messages, including those of their former editor, as confidential for purposes of the protective order in this case, along with the testimony provided in this case by them and their editor, except as they may from time to time permit plaintiff to file upon request and advance review by their counsel, and except to the extent that portions thereof have been filed by their counsel on their behalf. They have also designated their video footage of the Stephen Avery criminal trial as confidential. 2. Due to the volume of material that had to be processed for filing in response to defendant's summary judgment motion, among other factors, plaintiff's counsel did not have the opportunity to present the documents and materials pertinent to their summary judgment response to Chrome's counsel for advance review prior to filing. Number 3. Plaintiff's counsel therefore intended to file his brief and proposed facts, which describe materials that Chrome has designated as confidential, as restricted from public access pending further opportunity to either discuss the content thereof with Chrome or bring a motion to the court if necessary with respect to the alleged confidentiality of the materials. Number 4. The proposed finding of facts, docket number 325, were inadvertently filed without any restriction due to an internal miscommunication regarding whether the document was to be filed subject to restriction. Number 5, the response brief was filed as restricted, but a redacted version was publicly filed as docket number 331. Plaintiff's counsel has since been advised that there is a method by which non-case participants can download the document and use a program to remove the redactions. 6. For the above reasons, and with apology to the court and counsel for the inconvenience caused thereby, plaintiff respectfully requests that the court grant the relief requested and direct the clerk to restrict access to docket numbers 325 and 331 to parties and counsel only, pending further stipulation by the parties or order from the court. Number 7, plaintiff's counsel will contact the clerk's office at the earliest opportunity this morning. Oh, this is just a month ago, November 7th, 2022, to further request that consideration of this request be expedited. Number 8, Chrome's counsel has requested that plaintiff's counsel contact the court as soon as possible and request that the identified documents be restricted from public access. Oops.
Yeah, big oops. Yeah, I doubt that Judge Ludwig is going to look nicely on this. This is a big whoop.
Yeah.
Yeah, Burnett is also attached, but he's with a different firm. But yeah, April Barkstead Rockstead Law, LLC. She's right.
Yeah.
So they sound like there was a big blob up with document 325.
Something.
Finding a fact. I'm sure we've got the unredacted copy. And she also talked about a program, and I don't know what that is, that documents that have been redacted with using whatever, a non-participant can use this app to remove the redaction. I haven't tried. I've seen it in the past, but I personally don't have any. If they want it redacted for now, I'm okay with it. Let's just follow what they want. So all right, that's document 331. I'm sorry, that's 332. My bad. We were on 331. So we're moving to 333. And this is a 3-page docket from Dassey, Vic, and Carolyn. And as we know, we've seen a lot of material from Vic. He's part of a firm. Hold on here. Make this just a little bit bigger. It's a little. I need some new eyes. Anybody got some new eyes for sale?
I need new eyes. I'm considering LASIK surgery. I don't know if I qualify.
This is looks like a reply from Vic.
Yeah.
Or a letter. So it's regarding, I'll read this out. Regarding video exhibit to declaration of Megan Finzel in support of opposition to plaintiff's motion for partial summary judgment. Colborn v. Netflix. Honorable Brett Ludwig, Defendants Chrome Media LLC, aka Synthesis LLC, Laura Riccardi, and Maura Demos, collectively, the producer defendants, will submit an opposition to plaintiff's motion for partial summary judgment with supplemental proposed findings of fact and supporting declaration of Megan Finzel. Enclosed, please find a USB drive containing Exhibit 3 to the declaration of Megan Finzel, Part 2, of a 3-part video interview with Avery's trial juror, Rick Mahler, as they've spelled his name wrong, by Mark Hottendot, published on YouTube on June 7, 2022. He gives the web address, and produced by Netflix. That just means that that just means that he was shown in the series. The exhibit is in response to plaintiff's motion at docket 284. The letter was filed at docket 313 as indicated by the CM/ECI stamp on the footer. The USB drive will be delivered by Federal Express on Monday, November 7, 2022. Megan Finzel from Jesse Bick and Carol.
Oh.
Yep. And then it looks like a notice of electronic filing that they have to produce. Bunch of email addresses, so forth. They got copied, I guess, on all this, and it's got everybody listed. Oh man, it goes into another page. Holy shit. Hey, there's Lita's email address. And there's been a couple of things that I've thought about as we've read through these number of documents. And, they even made a little bit, she made even a little bit of mention about, these prior dockets. Just think about back to September when this document dump began. We were at, if I'm remembering correctly, we started on document 263. And now we're on document, we're fixing to go to document 334. And all the hundreds and hundreds of pages of attachments. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what that is. Let's move on to document 330. Okay, this is a 3-page document. Christina, I haven't asked you, but are you up for reading? You feel like reading anything, or you want to pass?
I can read. I wasn't prepared, but
oh, that's okay. It's
I'll
in
read.
it's in the Discord open mic text. I put.
All right. Which one are we doing?
334.
334. Okay. And this is Defendant Netflix Inc.'s response to plaintiff's motion to temporarily restrict. Pursuant to General Local Rule 79D3, Defendant Netflix Inc. submits this response to Plaintiff Andrew Colborn's motion to temporarily restrict docket 322 and states as follows. 1. On November 4th, 2022, plaintiff filed his opposition to Netflix motion for summary judgment and documents related thereto. 2. Because plaintiff did not request to meet and confer with Netflix prior to filing his papers, Netflix had no earlier opportunity to consider whether any of the documents plaintiff intended to file in connection therewith should be filed under restricted status. 3. Now, having had the opportunity, Netflix has no objection to the following documents being filed publicly and without redaction. A. Plaintiff's brief in opposition to defendant's motions for summary judgment, docket 327. B. Plaintiff's additional proposed findings of fact, docket 325, and it's got a subset 1 or a footnote 1. How do you say that?
Footnote. You can read it.
Footnote 1. All right, and I'll go through this, then we'll read the footnotes. And then C, the excerpted pages of the licensing agreement attached as an exhibit to the declaration of April Rockstead Barker, docket 330-22, or 4. Netflix takes no position on whether any other documents filed by plaintiff in connection with his opposition to either Netflix or the producer defendant's motions for summary judgment should be filed under restriction or with redaction. It's dated November 14th, 2022, and it's respectfully submitted by Lita Walker. And the the footnote states, although in his motion to restrict, plaintiff represents that his additional proposed findings of fact, docket 325, either contains redactions and or is currently filed under restriction. Neither is correct. That docket entry is currently accessible to the public, and the public version contains no redactions. Regardless, Netflix has no objection to it remaining that way.
Another
Nah.
man, April sounded me like they hosed up a couple of times, and I'm telling you, Ludwig is not going to look favorably on that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, all righty.
Bunch of idiot attorneys that, you know.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It just sounds like they're struggling, and it shows. I mean, to me, it does. They're struggling not only with their own submitted motions and so forth, but struggling with the case as well.
Right.
All right, let's move on to 335. This is the last one I've got pulled up for now. We can clearly always move forward.
They have made many errors in this case. And she graduated. I've mentioned this before, and others have as well. Barker graduated from Harvard, so she's not a dumb attorney. I think that she has gotten herself involved in a case where she knows, she's drowning because it's a shit case. And so when you're trying to win money for someone who hasn't been wronged, you've got to feel pressure from the people who want you to do this, right?
Well, they've sunk a ton of money and time into it. So, unless somebody's footing that bill along the way.
Well, I mean, and it's much like, only this is much, much bigger. It's a lot like Amber Heard's attorneys. I mean, they knew the truth of the case, the situation, and they still had to find ways to defend her. And not only that, by all appearances, she was very, very vocal in what she wanted them to do. Even though they were the attorneys, they were the experts, it was very apparent that she was, refusing this or refusing that, or do this and don't do that kind of thing. And when you're up against that kind of a client, you really must, at some point, you've got to be feeling the pressure, and
well, she made all kinds of demands of I can't think of her name now, but can you imagine dealing with Elaine? Yeah, I just can't even imagine dealing with someone like that. I mean, I can, but I would just probably say, I want to defend you, but I just can't. Goodbye.
I can't. Yeah. And so I wonder if that's kind of, on a different scale, of course, where Colborn's attorneys are. I mean, they've got to know that this is a dead case, but he's not going to let them back out now. Brenda, BS and Manitowoc isn't going to allow them to just give up now. Or, I mean, how they can't. They've invested too much time, too much money, too much effort, too many documents and motions and whatever. They have to go through with it, but they know, I can only imagine that they must know it's a dead case.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of other things at play here, right? This is keeping the public talking, which allows fuel to feed the fire that is that documentary that was at one time convicting a murderer, and now it's convicting, and who knows what it's going to be when it's released. They want it released. The other thing is, we've talked about it for a while. There is clearly a group of prosecutors from around the United States who do not have a problem convicting innocent people. And there's cops that don't have a problem giving them the evidence, no matter how they obtain it or plant it, to do so. So it would be beneficial to them if documentaries were not made exposing that, right?
Well, since it's
So
censorship, it's censorship. The Doc was right.
it really is.
Doc nailed it months ago. This is censorship.
And I don't know if anyone has, if anyone else has talked about or heard about the Balenciaga thing that's going on right now. Do y'all know about that? Anyway, there was a Supreme Court ruling recently that actually opens the door for electronic images that can be viewed as child porn to be legally used. Okay, Balenciaga did a really, at minimum, in poor taste campaign. The Supreme Court is making some very curious rulings right now, on the face of it. And, we know how they ruled about some Brady violations that should have clearly let these guys not face a second trial, but they said, and so there's been rulings that just kind of fly in the face of justice. So if these people think they have a Supreme Court that will side with them, is it worth throwing, bad money at a chance of censoring the media from telling the truth for fear of lawsuits? I mean, these some of these people have deep pockets.
Yeah, but you get into a situation like Making a Murder or some of these other documentaries that cover true crime. I mean, look at the ID channel and all the shit they get wrong all the time. I mean, they absolutely get a lot of stuff wrong for their presentation, whether it's on purpose or not. That part's immaterial. It's a whole industry that would be and that's just one genre. There are others. There are others too. That, man, this could affect. Like I said before, this is a landmark kind of thing. And to me, I just don't see, on the face of what I've seen and read so far, Colborn doesn't have a case. He just doesn't. He's a public figure. They told the story. The filmmakers told the story as they saw it. And by and large, because the state would not participate, they made that choice. They would not participate. They told the story as best they could from their point of view. And they didn't defame anyone. I'm sorry, they didn't. But yeah, that's curious. That's interesting, Christina. Maybe that's something that we kind of need to follow. But Alice, you want to read this next one? It's only a few pages. It's document 335. Did we lose Alice?
Sure.
Oh, there she is.
Defendants Laura Riccardi, Moira Demos and Chrome Media LLC response to plaintiff's emergency expedited Rule 7H motion to temporarily restrict docket 332. The producer defendants, Laura Riccardi, Moira Demos and Chrome Media LLC, respectfully submit this response to plaintiff's emergency expedited Rule 7H motion to temporarily restrict docket 332. Having now had the opportunity to review the materials in question, the producer defendants do not seek continued restriction or redaction of plaintiff's additional proposed findings of facts at docket 325 or redacted oppositions brief at docket 331. The producer defendants agree these documents should be made fully available on the public docket. The producer defendants will respond separately to plaintiff's November 3rd, 2022 motion to restrict docket 305 and November 4th, 2022 motion to restrict docket 322. The producer defendant's responses to those motions are due on or before November 4th and 25th, respectively, pre-Local Rule 7B.
Yep, that was from Vic. I don't remember specifically. I've got those documents. I'm not going to pull them up. I guess we'll see what we see as we move forward here. All right, I'm going to shut off the PDF viewer for a moment and load a few. And I'll also will throw those in the Discord chat. Open my. Give me just 1 second, folks.
How much more can this man try and bring out to blame the documentary? You know what I mean? It's getting ridiculous now. It's getting repetitive. It's getting tedious.
Actually, to me, Alice, it's really been quite tedious since probably around 320. In the 320s, it really started. They started really repeating themselves, and it's just gotten worse.
Yeah, exactly, Jack. Yeah. So if it's doing that to us, I can only imagine what it's doing to the judge, which I'm kind of hoping goes against Andy's favour in a sense, you know, because if the judge is getting pissed off with the repetitiveness and seeing that it's repetitive, you know, well, you put that in this motion and, you know, you did that in the last one and we sorted that out. Get to fuck your halfwit. You know what I mean? I'm hoping that's what he's got.
I can't believe that he won't. I mean, I think Ludwig is, again, I've said it before, I think he's been really fair to the defendants. And, but, you know, he said, you know, be economical. He's made that statement several times throughout. Be economical in your briefs and your motions. You know, that he really appreciates that. And to me, they haven't at all. Okay,
But even Comfort to come back on for Stephen's case as well. I mean, that's annoyed me and it's confused me. You know what I mean? Why is she coming back on the scene all of a sudden just to do this response to Kathleen? It's annoying and it's infuriating.
Well, who do you mean? Are you talking about Lisa Comfort?
Yeah, why is she, you know, why she all of a sudden came back on Rhonda, you know what I mean? Just to respond to Kathleen's.
I don't know. It just, I don't know. Maybe they thought she could be more snarky than Josh. I don't know.
He's pretty bad actually. They may want to dial it back because he was just a jerk in a few of his replies.
He was a full on asshole, no doubt.
He was.
Okay. And maybe that's why, but she was just as snarky and bitchy, maybe just in a more feminine, polite way, I guess, if that's possible.
Well, I wonder if Comfort doesn't write them at the circuit court level and the other guy writes them at the COA level.
That's possible.
Yeah. Because she wrote, because she's I think and I haven't like double checked this, but I feel like Comfort has always wrote the ones to Judge Suck at This because they all read the same. It's like she literally has Ken Krax's press conference and memos and email that he mass sent to all the media after Making a Murderer debuted with all the points, right? and there's no depth to it. It's like very much on the surface. And I guess maybe that's how AGs argue cases that they want to keep shut. They just stick to the facts and the record. But you would think someone would have the moral fiber of just wanting justice, especially working for the justice system, to actually look at the case that they're trying to keep this guy in prison.
No, their driver is to protect the state. It's clear as a bell to me. Protect the state at all costs.
Yeah, unfortunately.
All right, I've loaded up 4 more. We're going to start on this is 336. It's a 5-page document, and I guess I can read this one. I haven't read too much, so I'll give you guys a break. So this is defendants Laura Riccardi, Maura Demos, and Chrome Media LLC's response to plaintiff's motion to temporarily restrict docket 322 and motion to temporarily restrict as to video evidence docket 305. The producer defendants, Laura Riccardi, Maura Demos, and Chrome Media LLC, respectfully submit this response to plaintiff's motion to temporarily restrict docket 322 and motion to temporarily restrict to video evidence docket 305. Docket 322. The producer defendants understand 322 to cover the temporarily restricted exhibits to docket 330. And they give the number here, 330-2, 3, 7, 10, and 1, and 14. And certain briefing discussions discussing those examples filed at the dockets 24, 25, 26, and gives the exhibits 26-2 and 27, which were redacted in parts. Plaintiff subsequently files the expedited motion to restrict at docket 332 because he failed to restrict another document, document 325, and he improperly redacted a different document, 331. The producer defendants previously responded to that expedited motion and agreed not to restrict those documents. See document 335. So basically she's saying there that they've improperly did some redactions. Having now had the opportunity to review the exhibits at issue at document 322, the producer defendants are not seeking continued restrictions of the following exhibits: 330-2, 3, 7, 10, 11, and 14. Accordingly, the producer defendants also do not seek to continued restriction or redaction of dockets 324, 25, 26, 26-2, 27, and 31, which discussed the contents of those exhibits. The plaintiff's motion to restrict document 322 along with this expedited motion to restrict docket 332 could have been avoided if plaintiff and his counsel had complied with the protective order docket 189 and local rule 79D4 by meeting and conferring with the producer. I'll come back to the foot. Producer defendants in advance of plaintiff's filing of the November 4th, 2022, as has been parties and non-parties practiced throughout this case. The footnote. Soon after docket 331 was filed on the evening of November 4, 2022, its supposedly redacted portions were posted to social media site Reddit by a user who noted, quote, "They screwed up the redactions. So here they are. Long post, 3 parts," end quote. See concurrently filed declaration of Kevin Beck, Exhibit 1. Reddit moderators have since removed the comments. Other redacted documents filed by the plaintiff in this case were probably redacted and did not suffer from this defect. And it gives the docket 317-2 and Colborn 325.
Did you see the post?
I did not. That must have been on SEG.
Yeah, wow, I missed it too.
Yeah, I don't normally, but there may still be a way to recover that.
Yeah, I'd like to see the account that posted it.
Yeah, and I would like to see the unredacted portions, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, if I don't, I'm okay, but anyway. All right. Upon review of the November 4, 2022 filings, the producer defendants identified numerous instances in which plaintiff failed to properly redact certain immaterial personal contract information, including home addresses of various parties, including third parties, along with the name of one of Gregory Allen's assault victims who has not been publicly identified. Such personal information has consistently been redacted by all parties throughout the case out of respect for privacy and security. For example, plaintiff designated all documents with his phone number as quote unquote attorney's house only. The producer defendant's counsel respected plaintiff's wishes and redacted such information before sharing it with the producer defendants themselves in discovery, during depositions, and before filing it with the court. The producer defendants have spent considerable time and effort reviewing plaintiff's voluminous November 4, 22 filings and believe that all such issues with those filings have now been corrected. Wow. So addresses and phone numbers got published by, God dang, man, that's not good. And it's certainly not allowed on Reddit. Just for anyone that doesn't know Reddit, you can't post personal information about people that are not, you just can't do it. It's just a good idea to redact it, get it out of there, and move on.
Well, and doxing, I'm not sure, but I believe doxing is illegal in most, if not all, states. So it's breaking the law to do so.
Well, I mean, if you're doing it with the intent to create issues, absolutely. You know, just to publish it, nobody's going to bother. You know, I'm a nobody. If my shit got published, I'd be pissed about it. But nobody's going to bother me probably over it. You know, they're not going to say, "Hey, let's bother Jack." You know, but you know, you get somebody that's kind of in a celebrity status or one of these lawyers. Yeah, you know, just don't do it. You know, it's just.
Or the victim of a crime who's not been publicly named.
That too. You know, they want to keep their identity hidden. God almighty.
Yeah, that's horrible.
It is.
And I couldn't help but chuckle at when he classifies certain documents attorney's eyes only. I mean, I know what he means, but it's just weird because I've not ever seen it, declared that way. It's just funny.
Well, I mean, to me, if a client is talking to his lawyer, I mean, to me, it's attorney eyes only anyway.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Client, lawyer-client confidentiality. So.
Yeah.
All right. Docket 3.
Eyes only.
Yeah. Docket 305. Plaintiff also filed a motion to temporarily restrict as to video evidence of document 305, which the producer defendants understand to apply to exhibits 3, 4, and 5 to the Barker Declaration. And it's got dockets 330-4, 5, and 6. When it gives just for anybody that's new or that hadn't been following along, when you see a -4, -5, or whatever, that means there's an attachment to the main document. So 330 is its own document and it has attachments to it. So that's what that's talking about. The producer defendants seek continued restriction of dockets 330-4, -5, and -6, which consist of raw footage designated as quote-unquote confidential under the protective order, docket 189, that the producer defendants either filmed themselves at significant personal expense and effort in the process of documenting Stephen Avery's 2007 murder trial, or obtained from Wisconsin television networks with whom the producer defendants collaborated as part of the media pool in connection with the 2007 trial, with the producer defendants paying license fees. The producer defendants incorporate by reference here the arguments from the motion to restrict and reply with respect to similar raw video footage designated as quote-unquote confidential under the protective order, and request that both sets of unreleased footage stay restricted. See dockets 281, 83, 299. The same considerations justify restriction of the materials addressed in the prior briefing. Apply equally to the materials at issue in docket 305. However, the producer defendants only seek restriction as to the actual raw footage itself and do not seek restriction of portions of other filings where parties summarize or discuss their contents. Example, dockets 325 and 331. The producer defendants note, however, that plaintiffs' summaries are often inaccurate and otherwise objectionable on the basis of, among other things, the best evidence / secondary evidence rule. So if you guys remember when we were reading through some of these prior documents, Barker, the plaintiffs had they'd got this raw footage, camera A, from Mora and Demos, and they describe it. They're talking about. They had to be talking about this raw footage. They didn't show it, obviously, but they go through and detail it. Anyway, this is the end of that document. Sorry. November 18th, 2022, respectfully submitted by Kevin.
They just sound like such a bunch of whiners. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's move forward. 337. Rhonda, you want to read 337? It is a 2-page document.
Yep. Declaration of Kevin, Declaration of Kevin L. Vick. I, Kevin L. Vick, under penalty of perjury and subject to 28 U.S.C. 1746, declare as follows. 1. I am the attorneys for defendants Laura Ricardo, Mora Demos, and Chrome Media, LLC, collectively the producer defendants, in the above captioned action. I have personal knowledge of the matters set forth in this declaration, unless otherwise stated. I make this declaration in support of the producer defendants' response to 1. Plaintiff's motion to temporarily restrict, docket 322, and 2. Plaintiff's motion to temporarily restrict as to video evidence, docket 305. Is it docket or document?
Well, when it says docket, it's actually the document, so it's the same thing.
Okay. Yeah. Number 2, attached as Exhibit 1 is a true and correct copy of a Reddit post and comments posted on November 5th, 2022 on the subreddit, saying Stephen Avery is guilty. And retrieved at 12:10 a.m. Pacific time on November 6th, 2022 by my colleague, Megan Fensel. The post is titled Colborn Response to Summary Judgment Motions and includes a link to the PDF of plaintiff's opposition brief as filed on the docket on November 4th, 2022. A series of comments from the evening of November 5th, 2022 start with, quote, they screwed up the redactions, so here they are, long post 3 parts, end quote, and then proceeds to copy and paste the text behind the supposed redactions from the brief filed at docket 331 on November 4th, 2022 by plaintiff's counsel George Burnett.
I'm going to pause you right here. I'm going to pause you right here just for a second.
Okay. All right.
And the reason I'm pausing you right here because these people, right, wrong, or indifferent, they don't care who they expose. They doxed Dr. Silkman. This has been a couple of years ago now, and typically on Reddit, for those that are unfamiliar with it, typically docking someone is the red line. It used to be. You didn't. If somebody comes to Reddit anonymously, that's the way it stays. Now, if somebody wants to expose themselves, hey, that's on them, right? But someone that comes to Reddit anonymously doesn't have any link to their name or anything else, and then you have other people that in the background intentionally go dig, and find out who this person is and post their name and their profession and whatever. They did that to Dr. Silkman because he's a truther and they got pissed off at him. And I'm telling you, I went through the ringer with the Reddit admin over this, and they made every excuse under the sun to not ban that guy that did it. And to this day, they still haven't. And if it was unimportant, why did they removed the comments that had his name. If it didn't matter, why'd you remove it? So it did matter. It did matter. It just, anyway, the red line used to be, if you post somebody's personal information or name on Reddit, you're done. You're out. But they didn't do it. So anyway, they don't care.
Well, I didn't dox anybody, but I got banned from SAG years ago. So I don't even bother going in there and looking at anything.
It's
Anyway.
bad. It's bad. I was there probably within the last week. It's bad.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah, that's ridiculous. And illegal. Okay. Okay, so number 3, is that where I'm at?
Yes.
Okay. After the producer defendants counsel became aware of this issue with the redactions, I immediately conferred with plaintiff's counsel, and I'm informed and believe that plaintiff's counsel, April Barker, worked with the clerk of court to replace the document with a corrected redacted version at docket 331. Number 4, as indicated in the producer defendant's November 14th, 2022 filing at docket 334, the producer defendants had an opportunity to review the substance of the designations only after filing and agreed that the document at 331 need not be redacted or restricted, and also that the document at 325 need not be redacted or restricted. I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct. Respectfully submitted November 18th, 2022 by Kevin L. Vick.
Yeah, so we're getting a lot more current with where we're at now, because some of these filtered in over the last couple of weeks. So, yeah, that's interesting. And Christina, I definitely would like to know who removed the redactions, what was exposed, and if it was personal information, did that person get permabanned? I would really like to know that. Okay, we are at. It mentioned a couple of attachments for 330. The last was on 337. I don't have them. I didn't get them either.
No.
I'm gonna look again here in a minute. I don't think Sheree got them. If she did, I missed it. So if I've got if they're there, I'll grab them. But I don't think I try to be pretty on it when she posts this for us. So
I find it interesting that that what was done was similar to what was done to Dr. Silkman. These are documents that are
they're intentionally redacted
likely,
you know.
Well, they're most likely going to lawyers before they go to anyone else. So I think the likelihood that an attorney did this, posted this to Reddit on the SAG sub, it's a really good likelihood that an attorney who is supposed to, have uphold an oath to be better than the normal. You know what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm trying to say here?
They're an officer of the court, so they really shouldn't be if it was an attorney, which I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure it was, but
they don't give a shit. Like, they have made a mockery of the justice system.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And
I agree.
They do not care about anything but winning and making everyone else miserable and giving them more problems for not going along with their garbage story. Like, if you don't believe what they say, all the gloves are off, and they'll do whatever they can to embarrass, shame, humiliate, and how dare you question us for framing this guy? It's sick.
It's so bad on that side. I mean, I can, because they know I'm a truther. All I do is I could go in and just type in the word "have a great day." It'd get downvoted. Seriously.
Yeah.
It would. It's that bad. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. You can't have an honest conversation really with any of them, and that's unfortunate. But
Yeah, and these are officers of the court. A lot of them are. I don't think anyone else at this point gives a shit on the state side except people who, for some reason, are either emotionally, financially invested in Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey remaining guilty in the court of law.
Oh,
No one,
I definitely think that there's probably about 10 or 15 of them that are definitely somehow connected one way or another. Otherwise, why would they stick around, right? That's me. Why would you stick around? It's just it raises too many questions. Alice, you want to read this next one? It's looks like a couple pages. It's document 338.
Sure, no problem. Reply brief regarding motion to restrict as to Netflix Inc.'s argument excerpts.
Agreement.
Introduction.
Agreement excerpt.
Oh, agreement excerpts. Sorry. Introduction. With his response to defendant's summary judgment motion, plaintiff filed a motion to restrict access to certain documents, including excerpts from an agreement that Netflix Inc. had designated as quote-unquote attorney's eyes only. Plaintiff respectfully submits this short reply to the response by Netflix Inc. Agreement.
Argument.
Plaintiff
Argument.
Argument. Plaintiff welcomes the decision by Netflix Inc. to agree that filed excerpts of the defendant's agreement need to be restricted from public view. See docket number 334, pages 1 to 2. Plaintiff responds only to the portion of Netflix response that accused plaintiff's counsel of depriving Netflix's counsel of any opportunity to quote-unquote meet and confer. Regarding the motion to restrict, plaintiff submits this response to clarify the record. On at least 2 occasions prior to the parties' summary judgment deadline, counsel for Netflix advised in writing that summary judgment submissions containing the agreement would need to be filed under seal. Declaration of April Rockstead Barker, Exhibits 1 and 2, plaintiff's counsel considered making a request that Netflix reconsider its position after the first communication, but the second communication appeared to leave little room for discussion. Moreover, because plaintiff was willing to accede to Netflix demands, there appeared to be no reason to meet and confer. Conclusion. Putting aside whatever misunderstandings may have occurred prior to filing, plaintiff and Netflix now agree that the agreement excerpts filed as docket 330-22 can be unsealed, dated this 22nd day of November 2022.
From Ms. Barker. Okay.
what the hell did we just read?
Well, basically, she's
What is
basically
she trying to say?
she's saying that because Netflix said that there was no real chance to meet and confer about a document they filed, and that she's saying going back to hold on, this declaration
It's like she's saying
that
Big Bad Netflix didn't made me feel like I couldn't say that.
basically saying that she felt like that they didn't want to discuss anything, and which to me is a little ridiculous considering the breadth of this lawsuit, that they couldn't have some communication where April couldn't send Lita a message and say, look, can we talk about this?
Yeah.
So
I'm sure she said that over and over and over again until she screwed up and didn't say it. And now she's blaming Big Bad Netflix.
Yeah. All right. Document 339. We're getting close, people.
I want that Reddit post. I have a feeling it's either Fig Dish or who else? What's the other guy's name? I haven't been on there in a while. Who's the jerk that's always trying to make Colborn sound a thing? What's his name?
Oh, I don't know. You'd have to look. Big's on there quite a bit. A lot of the last time I was there, a lot of the several of the topics that are there were by him. He was
Yeah.
he was the OP, and he's talking a lot about. They're talking about Kath Zellner's defaulting on loans and all this bunch of crazy stuff.
So since you brought that up, I noticed that he said that her and her husband have property in Archer, Florida. Y'all want to know something crazy?
What's that?
That's like 10 minutes from my house.
A small world.
Yeah, I'm like I'm right down the road from Kathleen Zellner's people. That's pretty cool.
All right, Rhonda. All right, this is a one-page document. Can you read 339?
Declaration of April Rockstead Barker. April Rockstead Barker, under penalty of perjury, deposes and says, 1. I am the attorneys of record for plaintiff in the above captioned matter. 2. Attached as Exhibit 1 is a true and correct copy. Whoa.
Oh, you're reading off of me. You're reading off of me. I'm sorry.
I'm good. I got it. Is a true and correct copy of an email message that I received from Attorney Leda Walker on or about the date shown thereon. Number 3, attached as Exhibit 2 is a true and correct copy of an email message that I received from Attorney Leda Walker on or about the date shown thereon, dated this day, 22nd day of November.
I apologize. I didn't know you were reading off me. I wanted to go and open up these. I wanted to open up these exhibits. So, all right, let's look. Uh-oh. Let me turn that.
So I will just read from or look at yours.
I'll pop them in the Discord. Just take a second. Okay, they're in the Discord chat now. So if you want them, it looks like this first one is a series of emails that she's then looking for a date, August 2nd. Okay, it looks like it's one email. I'm gonna blow this up just a little bit. Okay. Okay, it looks like this is from Lita, and it's sent to April, and just a ton of people are copied. Hi, April. Circling back on this, we agree that you may file Netflix-produced notes and emails about or including notes conventionally, provided you redact email addresses and phone numbers. The next bullet says there are some discrete excerpts. Is that what it says? Discrete excerpts from the deposition of Del Dio and Nishimura, for which we will maintain confidentiality /AFO or AEO designations, but otherwise we will agree to de-designate those transcripts. We will send you the discrete excerpts by a separate email. Next bullet, we're happy to discuss the AEO designations of documents, but at this point, I don't see us removing the designation or agreeing that those documents may be filed conventionally. Last bullet, for anything else you plan to file with the court with some advance notice, we're happy to consider de-designation so you can file conventionally. Please let us know when you have a minute where you stand regarding Mr. Colborn's designations. Well, okay. I think April's really wrong. She clearly says there, you can, if you got any questions, give us a call. That's what I got out of it.
I think we knew that, right? We knew that, or let me rephrase that. I knew that there was no way Netflix attorneys had tried to use their huge, I don't know what she wants us to think, but I knew that she didn't in any way try and intimidate
Or shut the door.
Barker.
Or shut the door.
Yeah.
No. Not at all.
And I can't believe Barker's trying to submit this as evidence that she was, because that's just. Whenever I think of April Rockstead Barker, I think of those emails way back in the beginning, and she submitted this declaration where she told us about her mom dying, like all these excuses she had for making, really, really like first year lawyer mistakes in this case.
They were poor excuses. They were poor to me. Poor excuses.
And I'm not saying losing your mom isn't heartbreaking. It is. It truly is. But as an attorney, of you should know better than to try and pull an emotional card. Yeah. And that's like kind of set the tone for how this whole entire case has been handled from Andrew Colborn's side. It's a bunch of just drama seeking narcissistic individuals who it's just unbelievable that this case has gone on this long. It really is.
It really is. I don't disagree. Now, this second attachment. I'm sorry. Got a question?
I have a question. Regarding the first attachment, were you reading that as having been sent from Lita Walker or from April?
No, from Lita to April.
Oh, to April.
It says it right there.
All right. Yeah, I got confused because it sounded like you were thinking you were reading it like it was coming from April to Lita, but I was going to say something. That's what I saw was from Lita to April, but okay.
Yeah, no, April Barker is trying to say Lita Walker gave her no wiggle room in that email. Yeah. And she clearly says to her, if if there's other things you need to do, let us know.
Yeah.
Right.
That is the opposite of no wiggle room, right?
No wiggle room. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the second email is just a little bit after that last one. This is September 15th. And this is from Lita, again to April, and several people are copied. Counsel, we are no longer planning to submit the entire license agreement to the court. If you plan to do so, it needs to be submitted under seal, which, okay, that's true. And they asked them to do that.
Yeah.
I don't see any problem with that email at all.
No. Well, just like everything else that's been submitted or filed in this case, they have to make it, the plaintiff, Andy, has to make it sound like he's being wronged even through this process.
Yep. And then the last one, where the hell is it? There it is. And I'll share this in the Discord chat as well. 340. We're at the end of the documentation that we have today. Can't believe we actually made it. And this document it's only 3 pages long. Give me just a second, ladies. And I will share this document with you.
So funny to see your little cursor moving around.
Yeah, I know. Second monitor sure would be handy. All right, there you go. It's in the Discord chat as well.
Okay.
So once you get that, Rhonda, can you read this with this last one that we've got?
Oh, sure. Yes, I can. Okay. Come on. Okay. Reply brief regarding motion to restrict as to Chrome Media LLC materials. Plaintiff replies to Chrome's response, docket 336, to plaintiff's prior motion to restrict, only to respond to an unfair and unnecessary criticism. It appears that the parties agree that materials may be unrestricted, except
Oh,
as to the video.
You are about healing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
As to the video, that's what I said. Yeah, whining. As to the video exhibits themselves, plaintiff has already responded to that argument in response to Chrome's motion to restrict, and to avoid redundancy, does not repeat it herein. However, plaintiff objects to Chrome's continued attempts to chastise plaintiff for allegedly failing to quote unquote meet and confer about plaintiff's summary judgment response prior to filing it. For the benefit of the court, the background behind this claim is that unfortunately, Chrome liberally applied confidentiality designations to thousands of documents produced in discovery, even with respect to those used as deposition exhibits. Chrome insisted that plaintiffs seek approval to file these documents conventionally on a per document basis. In contrast, plaintiffs' counsel had proposed that the parties permit each other to file documents necessary for the summary judgment submissions without regard to prior confidentiality designations, except with respect to documents that a party identified as truly meriting such treatment. Chrome's refusal to withdraw its confidentiality designations, except on a per document basis, put plaintiffs' counsel in the position of either filing documents with motions to restrict or seeking pre-approval for the filing of all summary judgment factual materials from an adversary prior to filing them. Gosh. This unreasonable demand made the filing process much more cumbersome for plaintiff than it needed to be, and or would have effectively shortened plaintiff's deadline relative to defendant's deadline. Broadcasting to opposing counsel which documents would be included in a summary judgment response defeats the purpose of the party's request for a mutual deadline for response. The proper procedure would have been for Chrome, as the producing party, to narrow its confidentiality designations during the months available to do so prior to summary judgment submissions, rather than effectively transferring to others its burden to identify which documents in good faith merited such treatment. Chrome's counsel has previously responded to these complaints by advising plaintiffs' counsel that they should have filed a motion to force Chrome to narrow its designations if plaintiff did not like them. While this was considered, plaintiffs' counsel faced a choice whether to devote time and resources to the summary judgment responses or to devote them instead to bringing before the court a procedural motion that should not have been necessary. Plaintiff welcomes Chrome's decision to finally abandon unnecessary designations. At this point, the fact that the designations were overbroad is evidenced by their withdrawal. Well, that's awful. That's an assumption, isn't it? Accordingly,
It is.
plaintiff yeah, it's not evidence of anything. Accordingly, plaintiff respectfully objects to portions of Chrome's submission that unnecessarily and unfairly digress into criticisms of counsel's attempt to navigate a predicament of Chrome's own making. Dated this 2nd day of December, 2022, by April Rockstead Barker.
That is narcissism at its finest.
Me. That's, oh, whatever.
You know, I think that I think she's being pretty critical too because you know they agreed about certain filings actually months ago, and I know that
Mhm.
April has screwed up numerous times about confidentiality, and it comes
And
in part of the third party, and not only that, when they discuss this EFI, it's a basically it's or not a declaration, but it's a demand by one side or the other that certain things be kept confidential until they talk about it, and then they can narrow the focus and say, okay, you've got this huge document. Let's just say the contract or whatever that Netflix has, and they can say, well, you know, you can show all that except for Section 2 or whatever that they want redacted. So they should file it under seal, give the other side a chance to look at it. They can say, hey, this is good. This is what we want you to do. And boom, you're done. April's saying, oh, no, that's too hard. It's too hard.
Yeah. It's too
Yet they had,
cumbersome.
the plaintiff had tons of documents and things that they wanted to redact and keep
Yeah.
redacted.
Absolutely. The 4,000 text messages that we've only seen snippets of.
Yep. But and see how she flipped it around and said it was Chrome that had the tons of documents they wanted redacted. I mean, it's very. Oh wow. I mean,
Yep.
that they give lawyers bad names, bad rep.
Talk about
Well, again,
gaslighting, huh?
well,
Yeah,
we're down to
exactly.
we're down to basically nothing left in the lawsuit, in my opinion. That's just an opinion. But
Yeah. Yeah. Like
I
what
think
else?
that
What else is there?
right, other than whining that somebody was shown at their job and people responded to how that person did their job. That's what I see, you know. Yeah, you know, moving forward, I really have no idea which direction that Colborn's team can go. I don't know anything else left. They obviously this camera A footage can't be shown. I think that's I think that would be really a really bad if Ludwig chooses to unseal that. I think that's a really bad thing. I don't think he will because it's
So
not shown. It's not shown
yeah,
in Making a Murderer. You know,
is
there's
this
other
what's
reasons.
next? That's a good point. If it's not shown in Making a Murderer, then I think Ludwig should be able to look at it and say, "You're right. There's no way this could have been used in the documentary." And
Not broadcast worthy, or however they stated
yeah,
it. It's not good for
yeah.
broadcast. It's terrible footage.
So
Yeah.
I wonder if this is the last of the documents, and now we wait on Ludwig's decision.
You know, I think I don't know. I think there's still another response or two that Netflix said they were going to respond to separately that we haven't got yet.
I want that Reddit post.
Yeah, they used to be able to go. I don't know if it's still active yet or not, but used to you could if you had you could actually go to a website called instead of www.reddit blah blah blah, you put a C for the R. Just replace the C for the R. I don't know if it's still working or not, but I think there's other sites now that may be available. But anyway, going through to seed it, those posts were captured, stuff that had gotten removed. I don't know if it's still active now or not because I really I don't do much on Reddit anymore, not nearly as much. So, but there are other sites as well that also capture Reddit posts. I may do a little investigating and see. I want to know who posted it, unredacted stuff.
Yeah.
Me too.
That would be interesting.
Be interesting.
And if they did, did they get permabanned for it?
Who Dr. Silkman again?
Puzzled.
Yeah, that's the other guy. That's who I was trying to think of. I want to see if
He's
it's Big Dish or Puzzled that posted it. I have a
he's a
hunch it's one of the two.
he's a moderator.
Yeah.
Which means he would have the ability to remove it. Because he probably
Absolutely.
posted it tipsy and then thought better of it and got rid of it. But
Well, I think there was a report sent. It sounds to me like then it got removed, got taken down, because that shit shouldn't be posted. I'm sorry. I know I'm angry. I have anger towards some of these people that how they've acted towards us. But I don't want their personal shit posted anywhere. That's personal, private. Keep it that way. I'm sorry. I don't want that stuff at all.
You mean you're not one of the Making a Murderer viewers who called up Manitowoc County and made obscene voicemails for Andrew Colborn?
No, I'm not. I'm not one of those guys. That's not me
Isn't it
at all.
funny? I'm sure it's been talked about, but the claim was thousands of harassing and death threat calls, and how many calls have been produced? 2?
80, I think. 80. Well, I think they got a CD of like 80, 70 or 80 calls or something like.
Okay, and out of those, they've used 2 calls in their filings, right? The one from the guy who did the bomb threat, and then 3. Well, not calls. You have the guy he escorted who took a picture of him when he was working at the hospital. And then you have the girl, the service advisor who lost her job. They've greatly over exaggerated the viewer response to Making a Murderer.
Because in comparison, well, I was just going to say, in comparison to the number of people that watch, to some of these that are on the extreme outer fringe that did this stupid shit, it's a very low number, very low.
Yeah, I think that they definitely. I'm sure Colborn and other cops. There are citizens who look at them with a look that says, I don't trust you, right? If I was a citizen of Manitowoc and I watched Making a Murderer, and prior to that, I was ignorant to what kind of cops were in that town, which I don't think many are. But I'm sure there are people who now are more alert when around them, because you can't trust them. They're dirty cops, and if they'll do that, okay, I can understand. I don't agree with, but I can understand why they did what they did to Stephen. If you're slimy cops and you framed him once, and you think, and you've got a green light from the AG, you'll frame him again. What really shows how evil all of them are is how they all went along with the framing of Brendan, a kid who was in school when Teresa came to the property. He wasn't even there. And
look how they went after Jody, and she was in jail. Well, she's already gone now. I wanted to tell Susan, or not Susan, but she typed in the Discord chat. She's got stuff to do before bed because she's got work in the morning. But I wanted to thank her for her participation in an excellent reading. So we really appreciate that. Anyway,
and
look how they. Well, Alice is still here. Hopefully, she's not asleep yet. It's late for her, but. I mean, look what they did to Jody. I've shown that list a couple of times in various things. How hard they went after that woman at 18, 19, 20. I don't remember interactions between her or people that she was around to try to force her to flip. That's the kind of people they are.
Yeah,
These
but
good these good and
Jody had
decent
a
men.
record. Yeah,
She did.
Jody had a record, and she was in jail. And Brendan was an innocent kid. Like, he had no record. He had never been in trouble. And they did what they did to him because they could. They knew they could do it. They knew they could get in his head, like you said. They got into my head. They knew they could do that to him, and that's it.
And they couldn't afford, somebody to help defend him. And this is, well, Alice, you go ahead. You've got something, a comment, and then I'm going to go into a little bit of something else. Go ahead.
No, just completely agreeing with what Christina was saying. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they tried to get Jodie, and they couldn't. I think they even tried to get Bobby, in a sense, and they couldn't. They knew that he wouldn't be moldable, and I've always says that interview that they done with Brendan in that car was when they found their man that they could manipulate. And, well, no, a man, because he was a fucking child at the time. But that was when they found a person that they could easily manipulate to saying, because when he turns round and I can't even remember who it is, it might even be Dieter, but they turn round and they say to him, so it's 5 brothers you've got then, Brendan? And Brendan goes, aye. And then about another 5 minutes later, he's like, no, it's only 4. You know what I mean? So they knew then that they could manipulate Brendan, in my opinion.
And who was there? And Deb Strauss was there when they interviewed him. And I just have a feeling she's the one that said we can use him. I think she's the one that, because I don't know, the way she was able to go everywhere, yet there's very little evidence of her participation.
There's a ton of DCI documents from Deb Strauss that we don't have.
That's right. And that's calculating. That's very intentional. And
I'm going to guess that there's probably just off the top of my head, no, without counting, I'm going to guess there's at least a dozen, or maybe more, from Deb Strauss that we cannot get.
And there's very little footage of her too.
Correct.
We're still using the 2003 depot photos of her because there's not many photos of her. And to be a public official like that and have very few images, that says a lot to me. Yeah,
they're, talking about, we talked about it at length last night, and, and this is not to be unfair one way or the other, but, talking about Bobby and his situation, these police, these cops, seasoned detectives, they knew that, that Bobby didn't have any money to afford a lawyer, nor Barb. These people, just like a good portion of people in the world, they live paycheck to paycheck. They don't have a lot of savings put back, and they can afford a, $500 retainer fee for a lawyer to come and defend your ass. So there's that calculation figured in there as well. Again, we get back into civil rights, and I could talk for hours about that. I'm not going to. I'm just saying that the police are. There was I think everybody's probably seen it by now. This professor give this speech to his class, and he's talking about, if you're going to talk to the police, you need to get a lawyer. That's your first thing. That's your first move. Get a lawyer. And this is not to say that you're guilty of a damn thing. And that's a lot of the perception of people. It's like, well, you got a lawyer now, you must be guilty of something. No, it's to protect yourself. It's not to say that this person's guilty of a damn thing. You retain legal advice. because the criminal justice system is a different animal, and you need a professional to help you. So I think Bobby was, as we talked about last night, I think he was an 18, 19-year-old kid that was scared fucking shitless. And I think there were things said to him when the recorder wasn't running that put him in the position of, it's go along or get caught up in it. And I can't prove that. That's speculation on my part. I have another suspect in mind who I think could have potentially done this crime to Teresa. Obviously, I can't prove that either, but this guy lied. Her friend lied numerous times throughout, lied. And people don't lie for good intent most of the time.
Nope.
And in this instance here, it certainly wasn't. So
nobody lies for good. There's no good reason to lie. We can
Well,
tell
to tell
ourselves
you,
for a
well, to
good
tell,
reason,
well,
but
well,
it's
to tell your,
there's not a good reason.
to tell your kids a white lie to, protect them from some emotional damage, I can go along with, as long as the truth is going to come out when they get a little older. I can get that. That's not the same thing, though. You're trying to, you're trying to steer the conversation away from something that could be potentially damaging to a young child. Okay, you got to fib a little bit and massage it. That's not the same thing as what happened, what we're talking about.
No, not at all. No.
No.
And, I missed something. So there's two little things about Deb Strauss. She's no longer with DCI. She's
Really?
now
She retired?
the fraud. Yep, she's now the fraud coordinator. I'm gonna have to get on LinkedIn. She's the fraud coordinator for Fox Communities Credit Union. Yep.
That's interesting. That's
And
interesting.
her husband is not only related to Manitowoc Police Chief Leroy Strauss, he was also related to Mike Bushman.
But now, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't I can't remember who found it? But Strauss is the sister-in-law of Wilford.
No, it's not. Okay, so it's not Strauss. It's okay, let me rephrase that. I think that Strauss and Williford are related, but I can't find the document that I found that proved it. So that's still not.
But there's a connect. But there's a connection.
Williford and who's the chick who had the dogs? Who's Luke's trainer? Sarah Faust. Williford and
that's the one.
Are sister-in-laws. Deb Strauss is related by marriage to the Bushmans and to the police chief who was best friends I don't know about best friends, but they were best friends law enforcement wise with the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Officer, Thurick. Because Thurick and Leroy Strauss ran that town for decades, and that's either her father-in-law or her uncle. And Bushman and her husband are cousins. So
Interesting. Peyton Place.
Yeah.
Telling you.
Yeah.
Telling you.
And she acts like she didn't know Manitowoc from a hole in the ground prior to having to investigate their involvement in the Stephen Avery case. And that's so far from the truth because her husband's uncle was the police chief of Manitowoc while Gregory Allen was running around raping women.
Really.
Yeah.
Such a Peyton Place. Such a Peyton Place.
Yes, for sure. So.
Alrighty, ladies, and those in the live chat. It's been real. It's been fun, but we're finally. I didn't think we'd make it this far. We're a little over 3 hours in. We've chatted here for a few minutes, but we're finished with everything that we have to date. in the Colborn v. Netflix case. We'll wait to. I can't imagine. I would be surprised if we don't get some more documents dropped this week. This week, for me personally, is going to be. I don't know how much streaming I can actually do this week because of the move, and that's probably going to happen midweek.
All right, so let's go ahead and postpone CTE until the following week. So we'll announce that now. We'll just do crime theory on the next Wednesday. That's not Christmas, is it?
I don't think so. Let me look here.
Okay.
This is the 7th, so that would be the 14th. That's the week before Christmas, so we should be good.
Okay.
I mean,
right.
internet's already hooked up at the house. It's there. It's on, but it's the fact of the physical move, getting everything, all that shit was moving. So
yeah, I was thinking about that earlier with you, like having to move your computer setup and then get it back together. That in itself is going to take time, to get your vibe back and all that. So.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yeah, it shouldn't. Yeah, it shouldn't be too big of a deal, but it's still we lived, like I said before, we've lived here for over a decade, so it's just I hate moving. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, so do I.
One last thing I will bring up. I've talked about it before, and my irritation, my extreme irritation as record custodian for Calumet County, Uyghur has trying to find a way to deny me access to or a copy of this Brendan interview that we do not have. It's not out there anywhere. I never heard such of a poor excuse. If I had it handy, I'd put it on the screen so y'all could read it for yourself. But I've never heard such a poor excuse that the crime lab is not doing conversions right now. What? The state, the crime lab, you know what? Yeah, I've got it, but I'm not going to dig and pull it up.
What day is this interview?
I don't think we know. It's just a ledger entry. I don't think we know what day it is. I'd have to look, but it's an earlier on interview that I'm sure of. Back towards early mid 2006. So okay. It's an earlier interview. I'll look at the ledger and see if there's a date on it, but I don't think there is. And then he went on to say, well, in addition to that, the balancing test, criminal complaints, court stuff, there is nothing on Brendan at all. There's no criminal. Did you reopen the investigation on Brendan? I don't think so. If you did, please give me the case number, the incident number, so I can request those documents. Court case?
Yeah, that pisses me off when they say that you can't get it because the investigation is ongoing. As a fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the records custodian. Sheriffs in the individual counties in Wisconsin are the keeper of records, and their word basically is law. And there's no, short of hiring a lawyer or filing a mandamus, which would go nowhere, appeal, unless they suddenly change their mind.
I find it interesting that 2022, a lot of them are no longer, they left the sheriff's department, the DCI. We had Uyghur, now Strauss. It's I wonder if behind the scenes something isn't in the cards, like they're trying to get rid of everyone, they're retiring them off, and then they'll make a memo, do a quiet release, and say that it was just a poor police practice, but no one particularly was at fault. No harm, no foul.
It could be just the simple fact, Christina, that they're retiring early and everything like that so that they can keep their bonuses and their police pensions and everything like that. They're not leaving because, I mean, I don't think they're leaving because it's a choice. Yeah, I mean, shit could be hitting the fan. But can you imagine if Weigert was still in charge as the sheriff and then all the shit hits the fan and he gets made to leave? You know what I mean? Then he loses his pension, he loses, which they all should be entitled to. They should all lose their fucking jobs. But in my opinion, they're not doing it because they want to retire. They're doing it because they maybe think that something's going to come up or something's going to happen, or Kathleen isn't giving up no matter what. So they need themselves. So they're going to take early retirement so that they can keep their pensions and their bonuses and everything like that. And then if stuff does come out, they can go, well, I'm not in the office anymore, so it's really got nothing to do with me, you know?
Yeah, well, and they can't, if they're retired, it's easier to just, yeah, I'm just curious. And plus, you got to wonder if there aren't people who are realizing that, you know, these certain officers were involved in all of these things, and maybe there is an attempt. I want to believe there is an attempt to try and right the justice system, right? We have to believe that there are people who want, the innocent people on the streets and the guilty people in prison, not vice versa. I mean, this Gregory Allen thing, what they've done,
Yeah.
what they allowed him to do, it's not the fact that they framed Stephen Avery for a crime he didn't commit twice so much as they allowed men like Gregory Allen to remain free. And Gregory Allen was a very violent guy. Like, it wasn't breaking it, sexually assaulting a woman and leaving. He would beat. We saw what he did to Penny. Well, we didn't see, but we heard what he did to Penny.
He beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, he beat them like men beat men.
Yeah, but you think that that's what they would be up in arms about, you know?
Yeah.
But they're not. They're not. They don't care. Stephen Avery is just a riffraffy Wisconsin, you know what I mean? What does it matter to him? I mean, it's like, as I've always said, if it's not happening to them or in their family, they don't care. They don't give a shit. You know, because, I mean, that's like the politicians and everything like that I see. I mean, see the amount of fucking school shootings that you have over there. And you still have these people standing up giving it, oh, it's my fucking Second Amendment to have a gun, blah, 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 blah. No. That's because it's not happened to their child. And I don't wish any harm on anybody. You know that. But this is the way I see it and the way I look at it. The reason why you get these people still saying that on no matter what, whether it's a shooting, a stabbing, or whatever, because it's not happening right in their vicinity. It might be in their county, might be in their state, might be in their district, but it's not happened to them or their family. So they don't give a shit. But I guarantee you, if it's their son that's up for a rape charge, or it's their daughter that's went missing, or it's their son or daughter who's been shot up in a school, then you're damn fucking right. They'll start screaming and shouting about it, you know, and it shouldn't need to take that. We had a shooting here in 1996, if I'm remembering my dates correctly, in 1996, and it was called Dunblane, the massacre of Dunblane. And this man just went straight into the school and started shooting up a classroom full of kids. Do you know after that, We brought in the strictest gun laws there is in any other country, as far as I'm aware. You know, so we put a stop to it there and then, and not since then, touch wood, Harry Wood's the best, for crying out loud, have we had another school shooting.
Yep.
You know,
Well, you know, you're talking about protecting, you know, or how things are done. You know, I'm reminded, and I actually popped on the screen the list letter I got from Uyghur. But before I say this or get to this, this massacre, I'll say it's a massacre. These 4 college kids that got killed in Moscow, Idaho, and the confusion, and basically no one's been named as a suspect at all
yeah,
in this horrendously bloody crime scene. Horrendously bloody. They don't have, apparently, from what we're being told, there are no suspects. They have no leads. I'm not saying it's not possible, but you know, somebody wielding a knife like that or a machete or whatever the hell they had, I just don't see how they couldn't have left some kind of evidence. But, and I don't know this is true. This is speculative on my part. I've read this in other places too. Is someone being protected that is connected to whoever that has the clout to protect them? Because this was a massacre. I mean, literally, those kids were cut up bad. So I don't know.
Yeah,
But
that's a curious one, that, Jack. The
it is.
the 4 students one. I mean, that definitely is. The fact that they've not got anybody and even in mind for it, you know, I think there was somebody else on the lease or something like that, but they've now ruled them out because they left a
There's
month
2
ago
more.
or something like that. They're still on the lease.
There's 2 more. There's 2 more people that were there. I think they were upstairs, away from where the bedrooms where these 4 were. But they were upstairs, apparently asleep, and slept through it. So somehow, I mean, I don't know. You know, you don't know the circumstances, so it's hard to even speculate how that could have went down, because you know there would have been screaming and yelling and all kinds of shit going on with that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But apparently they have been ruled completely out of this horrendously bad thing. Another thing that's happened, there's I think been 3 instances where the police department first said that this was a targeted attack. There's no danger to the community. Oh, really? So you have someone in mind that you know that they went to this house specifically looking for 1 or more of these kids that got killed. Oh, no, we can't say that. So they had to retract that. So there's still a danger to the community because they have not named anyone. And then the prosecutor made a statement. I don't remember exactly what it was. I read this earlier today. That's had to be retracted. So there's some confusion about the information that they're even releasing, which is really basically nothing. I don't know. It's not passing the smell test for me. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't want to. I mean, I know that there's people involved that they want to do the right thing and they want to try to solve the case. I get that. But I just had this uneasy feeling that there's something else at play. Maybe I'm wrong. Hey, before we get out of here, though, go ahead.
That doesn't surprise me, Jack. I mean, really, because, I mean, just look at the Uvalde shooting. Those bloody kids, you know, and the state that case has become. You know, people blaming other officers blaming other officers, and you know, them standing about for 77 minutes, but all these different wee details that are coming out. The parents of those kids were finding out for reporters rather than coming for the police, you know what I mean, and the state patrol and everything like that. So yeah, it makes it iffy when there's no communication, or you feel like they're holding back on something, you know, and it's no right. It's no right on the families of the deceased, and it's no fair on the deceased because they deserve justice.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, after I talk about this, I want to get you to talk about Luke and Jody's case for a minute. I got some questions for you before we actually run out the door. But I wanted to show everybody this letter, and it may be a little confusing, but and you'll see in parentheses over on the left. I had 25 items in my original request since August 25th, 2022. So these are the numbers that he's referencing. Number 6 and number 5 and 6. I was told, they told me they would have to be sent out for conversion. Well, the Remaker video that we do have, of course, they blanked out any sound and replaced with white noise. That had to be converted. I got that. That was done at the crime lab. But then, if you read in regard to us, the Jody jail visit, I was told they don't have it. Well, they did have it, and it wasn't a visit; it was a call. But that's irrelevant. The getting onto the Brendan property tag 9219 cassette tape interview of Brendan Dassey. The crime laboratory does not convert audio cassette tapes at this time, and therefore the record will not be available for release. And then the sheriff's office is required to determine if the public's interest in disclosure of the requested record outweighs the public interest in not disclosing the records requested. In particular, the office has considered and weighed the public's strong interest in preserving evidence in the chain of custody in an ongoing criminal proceeding. So somebody please tell me when they open Brendan's case up. Because as far as I know, it's closed and has been closed for, several years now. And related proceedings.
Exactly.
And finds it outweighs the strong public interest in providing access to public records generally. Well, that's bullshit because Brendan's case is closed and there are no court appearances scheduled on the docket. There are none. I've looked. Of course, you can see this other one down here.
Left, does he know?
But
as well,
you get this kind of response from the records custodian of the county. It's like you've hit a brick wall because I have no out other than to reply back and demand that basically give me the record or give me these investigatory records since you guys will reopen the investigation. It's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous that they're allowed to do this. It's an abuse. To me, it's complete abuse of the spirit of the open records law. Hey, I understand we can't have everything. I get it. I'm fine with that. But the things that should be available, they should be turned over. And, if it's going to cost me a few more bucks, so be it. We'll pay it.
Yeah. But that's the thing though, Jack. Everything about Brendan and the case and everything like that is out there in the public anyway. And it is in the public interest because there is a child, or he was a child, being convicted of horrendous things that he did not fucking do. So there is now an innocent man called Brendan Dassey sitting behind bars for something that he didn't do. So where is that not in the public's interest? Of course it's in the public's fucking interest.
Well, it tells me, Alice, that there's probably things said in some capacity that they don't want in the public to the public to hear, just like the Bobby Dassey interview, November 9th. Yeah, I don't blame him for keeping that shit under wraps. I wouldn't want that heard either because it was ridiculous. It was a totally ridiculous. Also, now the Orville Jacobs calls, they say they don't have anything. I tried to get it from the prosecutor. He didn't. Of course, the prosecutor's like, the prosecutor files are exempt from the open records law, and they are. So nothing there. And then the Jody jail calls. This is another one. They recorded a bunch of Avery's calls, labeled them as Jody, and called it good. Because there's not, I went through since the last time I bitched about this, probably another, and I didn't convert them. I just opened my little app that I have to use to play these calls and just listen to probably 20 or 25 just scattered throughout the next several weeks and months. Not one is from Jody. Not one. They're all from Stephen, and we've got all those. Why the hell do I want them again? It's stupid. So he says they've fulfilled their statutory duty. Well, no, you really haven't at all.
No, you haven't. And actually, by showing that evidence is mislabeled as one thing when it's another, you've exposed that your evidence handling is suspect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anyway, I don't want to continue to bitch about this because it really frustrates me, and I know it does other people that do open records requests. Christina's been down this pike with other requests. It's like hitting a brick wall. It's like you get discouraged and like, you know what? I know this is not right. I know it's not.
No.
So I'm going to continue to push, but
yeah, don't give up. Don't give up. Because Wiegert's leaving, so
yeah,
there's going to be a new person at the helm, and who knows? Maybe he'll have a conscience. Maybe. You know. I just want to share this. What bugs me the most about Deb Strauss, Peg Lautenschlager, Wendy Baldwin, and the other women who worked these cases is the fact that they know that Manitowoc allowed Gregory Allen to remain free to do what he did to all these other women. And they went along with it, knowing
they did.
that whoever did what was done to Teresa Halbach is now free to do the same to more women.
And maybe they have. And maybe they have, Christina. Maybe they have.
And to be okay with that kind of ruins any attempt you try and paint Stephen Avery as a bad guy, right? Because if your excuse for framing Stephen Avery is protecting women from him, well, why didn't you protect women from Gregory Allen? And that has always bugged me in this case, is how easily they have used, well, Gregory or Stephen Avery was the bad guy, yet you allowed a much worse man to remain free to do much more horrific things to women. And so your excuse that Stephen Avery is a bad guy, therefore it's okay to frame him, doesn't work for me.
No, but that's where it brings me back to, Christina, is that it's not right on their doorstep. You know what I mean? If it was their, if something happened to their daughter or their niece or their sister or their mother or
somebody connected,
a close friend or something like that, somebody who was really close to them, like their friends in their vicinity or something like that.
They have to feel the pain. They have to feel the pain.
But let's be clear, Teresa Halbach wasn't a Jody Stachowski. Penny Bernson wasn't a Jody Stachowski. Teresa was from a well-off, upper-class family, and Penny Bernson, well, we don't know much about Gregory Allen's other victims, because thankfully they're alive. And and victims' identities is withheld, but these were not low income drug addicted women. I know the woman that I spoke with in Minnesota who believes Gregory Allen was her assailant is an attorney. Her cousin is in the upper echelons of the police department, and she can't get her case reopened because it's likely Gregory Allen who assaulted her. And they don't want that in the media. No. So
that's crazy.
Like that? Who has the power to have women, allowing other upper class women to be done this way, and they're okay with it? It's
exactly.
crazy. It really is.
Yeah. Hey, we're approaching 3 hours and 30 minutes, but before we get out, if Alice, if you're okay, can you spend just a couple of minutes and catch everyone up about this knife in the
Please.
Jody and Luke case? Yeah, I read the story, but I know that not everyone has about the knife they found and what happened and all that shit.
Yeah, somebody's came forward. It was a car mechanic who had a skip on his property when Jody was killed, and it was only like 500 yards away from where Jody got killed. And in that skip, they found a knife, a bow knife, a big bow knife. And
It was wasn't it one of his workers that found it and went and got him and said, "Hey, is this your damn knife in here, dude?" And they looked at it and called the cops.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, and they were there the morning that the police were in the skip, emptying the skip with their forensic suits and everything like that on, looking for the tip of this knife. Well, this knife was never tested, it was never submitted, and it has now disappeared. Not only that, it is came out over the last few weeks. As of November 2021, they have been destroying evidence in Luke's case.
What?
Now, the documentary came out, and don't quote me on exact dates, but say between February and May of 2021. And by November 2021, the Major Crime Division has went to Edinburgh, probably Dalkeith Police Station, took away boxes of evidence to be destroyed. And then amongst that evidence that was to be destroyed was the fingernail scrapings that they took from Jodie's one hand. The burnt clothing that was reported being burnt, you know, the clothes that they said that Luke was burning.
Right.
Bullshit. It was actually John Ferris's mother, Yvonne Walker, and that was burning the clothes. And there was a search warrant executed on one of Luke's friends, and they took a green Parker jacket. You know, the green Parker jacket that they keep accusing that Luke had, that Luke never fucking had, that he never bought, and his mum never bought. He is seen wearing a Parker jacket in July of 2003, but that was bought after the murder, because when they done the raid on Luke's house, they took every bit of clothing he had, and his mum handed the receipt for that jacket to his lawyers. So that was the only time Luke had a Parker jacket. But this missing Parker jacket that they said Luke burned in the back garden is actually there, but was said to be destroyed. There was 3 knives and knife swabs that were also sent to be destroyed. And now I don't know how many of these items have actually been destroyed. But the Crown has graciously stopped the destruction of the evidence. Now, here in the UK, for a serious crimes offence, the evidence is kept for 12 years. If that person has an appeal or anything like that, and that evidence gets used, then from that appeal, it has to be kept for 12 years. So Luke went for an appeal in 2014. So 12 years from 2014 is 2026. So by rights, by their own laws, none of that evidence, not a single bit of that evidence, should have even been taken away to be destroyed until 2026. But they took that stuff away in November 2021.
Has it been destroyed for sure? Is it gone?
Well, that's it. I don't know the way that they're reporting on it. It's hard to decipher whether it's actually been destroyed already or if it was there to be destroyed, if you see what I mean. So we probably won't know for a while, maybe until Luke's appeal, because that's what they're going for. But we still want the independent inquiry because this is just ridiculous now. And the police and the prosecution are going, please don't sue us, please. So they're in negotiations with Luke's legal team. And I think they're going to try and pull the stunt. Well, if you don't sue us, then we'll no stop an appeal or anything like that. You know what I mean? And I'm hoping to God they tell them to fuck off.
Well,
You know
they
what I
really
mean?
kind of they probably
Disgusting.
yeah they probably should.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yes, they should.
Well, that's interesting.
Because if they have destroyed the fingernail scrapings, Jack, then that is biological evidence in a sense, because what could she have had under her fingernails there? You know what I mean? It's the fact that, and some of this stuff wasn't even handed over to the defence team. Like you know, I don't know if you've heard me going on about the essay that Mark Kane, the boy with the scratches on his face that went to Scott's Forbes house and then he took him to the police station. He said that he wrote an essay, and the police have said blatantly that essay does not exist. It fucking does exist, Jack. They have found it.
Oh boy.
They found
brother.
it, and it was said to be destroyed. And do you know what the difference is? Is
what?
The one that's been found is called No Remorse, but it's gone on about killing a lassie and that in the woods. And the one that the police are saying doesn't exist is one called killing a girl in the woods or something like that. That is the only difference. It is the name that is the only difference. Because
a little bit of mislabeling.
Yeah, definitely. Because somebody's called it one thing and that's what they've went with, but it's actually there's two copies there, Jack. There is the original copy, and then there is an amended copy that the teacher asked him to do as the amended copy, you know. So there is two copies there. There's the original one and there is the amended version of it. And the two of them are there, and the Scottish Criminal Case Review Commission came across this essay in 2013.
Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be a review. I know that's what you guys are hoping for, a review of everything reopening, and it definitely needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Yes, it certainly does, Jack. But that's it. Who do we go to now? You know what I mean? Who do we go to now? There isn't a higher power than the prosecutors and the Crown Office. You know what I mean? So who can we actually turn to investigate these fucking people? We could maybe get police officers from down south, down in England, that are experts in, you know, the certain different aspects of the case to investigate the Scottish Crown and the Procurator Fiscal's office. You know, it's turning out to be good in a sense, but it's also starting to be fucking ridiculous, you know.
Well, yeah, evidence that didn't get turned over to the defense, and they've got scheduled for destruction. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
God Almighty. Well, I knew.
So, well, so
I knew.
that tells you Mark Kane was invested then. No, no, what that tells me, William, is that this so-called essay that Mark wasn't supposed to exist by Mark Kane actually exists. And why was it not handed over to the prosecution? You know, it's getting worse and worse for them, and I do hope more and more comes out about it. I really, really do, because it is disgusting. The fact that they've made a murderer out of a 14-year-old fucking child and then sent him to jail for fucking 20 years for something that he's not done.
It definitely needs to be reinvestigated. I agree. Even if there's even a question, it needs to be relooked at.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to be without a reasonable, it's supposed to be without a reasonable doubt. Convict without a reasonable doubt. Well, there is far too many reasonable doubts in this whole case.
Well, if the defense wasn't given all the information to present their case, then that, I don't know how the laws work in Scotland, but certainly just looking at it as a reasonable person, that creates a problem. If you don't know the entire facts of the case, stuff's been hidden, or that knife's gone now, you got a real problem. It needs to be sorted out, and you can only do that with a hearing.
That's it, Jack, though. We don't know exactly. I mean, Luke's legal team probably knows what's been destroyed, but we don't know actually what's been destroyed and what's stopped being destroyed. There's at least 100 items that was sent to be destroyed.
Damn.
And in my opinion, it's all the items that could prove Luke innocent that's been destroyed.
Double damn. Well, I hope they do something. But I wanted to, give you a minute to kind of explain where the case was at, because at some point I would like to re-talk about that case and represent. We did it once, but Murder in a Small Town is a good expose, and it's another case that many of us feel. I know our William is on the other side. He's really civil about his discussions. He's willing to listen and talk, and others out there maybe not so much, but we feel that this is a case for wrongful conviction. At some point, I wouldn't mind re-talking about that one again. This is good information. So excellent. I hope they do something, like I say. So anyway,
by all means, I can send the articles and things like that that's came out, because there's a couple that's came out. I think they were like Thursday or Friday. I mean, they're saying the same things, but it's giving you a bit more information. I mean, like the knives, the 3 knives and the swabs, the so-called missing knives that are actually there. The essay that was hidden. Things have been hidden, William. They have been hidden. So it's maybe something that we could maybe go back to at some point.
I wanted to say hello to our friend Jamie, on the road Jamie Hart, for coming in. I see Travis is here as well. Good to see you guys. We're actually wrapping up. So with that said, let's go ahead and skedaddle out of here, because we're pushing 4 hours now. And personally, I'm quite hungry. I don't know about you. Well, it's late for you, Alice, but I'm pretty hungry. I got to get some din-din. So we're caught up with the Colborn documents so far. Again, I expect that there'll be more dropped this week, but we'll see. If there are, we'll get them out as soon as we can, and for everybody, and we'll just continue to follow this case. With that said, I don't know exactly when my next podcast will be. It could be this coming weekend. Possibly I'll be set up and ready to go, but we'll see. So I want to thank Alice and Christina, and again Rhonda, for helping read through the documents. I'll make sure that there's a link in the video in the description for those documents that are not included on the File Place library yet, but they will be added to the library. And with that said, I'm going to say thanks again. If you like what we do, give us a like, subscribe, share the video, get other people interested. And we'll catch you all the next time. It's been a Foul Play production.